rise above, generate, rise above, extinguish fear, rise above, abstract stillness, rise above, double O, rise above, extinguish fear, rise above, extinguish fear when we generate. Since day one we've been going in militant, not same, also different. Abstract stillness, no equivalent. Double O's flows omnipotent, make I suggest a lyric-proof vest. I got a bar that will tear through a chest, cause a massacre from my caliber. Your Kevlar can't protect. Anyway, back to the subject. Expose devilish acts to the public. I talk topics they won't publish, instigating cold wars like Sputnik. Observe you with a satellite view. Heard the cattle these parasites do. Worshipping the gods of our conquerors is a blinded acolyte view. Members of spineless remain reminded they drink blood and sacrifice you. So misguided, laws are provided to benefit the chosen few. So we rise above and extinguish fear when we generate love. A single candle lights up the darkness. That is the power we all harness. Let's identify targets, light them up, lift them down. Carpet beef, sprinkling garnish. The message, word, power, sound. I don't care if my whip gets tarnished. Split this shit till I'm dead in the ground. Where they pollute your mind with garbage. Do one thing, just hold it down. Rise above when we generate. Rise above, generate, rise above. Extinguish fear when we generate. Rise above when we generate. Rise above, extinguish fear when we generate love. Rise above when we generate. Rise above, generate, rise above. Extinguish fear when we generate. Rise above when we generate. Rise above and extinguish fear when we generate. It's more than 232s in a hook. You want lyrics? I write books. Where your head double L overtook with a statement you can't overlook, and I drop rhymes you can't unhear. Plot lines never unclear, and I tell them direct to your ear. I doubt the signs that guided us here. And these lies from lost puppeteers who cut through throats like Schwartz buccaneers. Call to arms, don't volunteer, or take orders from brigadier. From war and carnage they profiteer. The march goes on till we disappear. It's my duty to interfere, smash them systems like chandeliers. MCs chat about whips and cars, I rap bars about pyramids on Mars. Another weird.
Welcome back, everyone, to the #1 stream in the whole goddamn crater. It is Rise Above, and it's a Wednesday night. I am here, and I'm about to be joined. Oh no, he drops out again. He'll be back in a minute. Master Lee will be back like the Candy Man. Say his name, and he returns.
Excellent.
Big shout out to Auntie Kovia. Big shout out to Commander Sagehead and all of the team, all of the family, and everybody tuned in. Look at these graphics tonight. Rise Above is once again looking nice. Let's get some. Let's just get some extra bits and pieces up here to make it look super duper good. Yeah, look at that. But it's not customer services. We'll have this one instead. So welcome back, everybody. It is Wednesday night. What an onslaught! The greatest apocalypse ever is serving up on a plate to us. Big up Commander Sagehead. Hang tight, Mark Anthony. I'll be chatting about that very powerful individual in a short while. Shout out to Lorraine Wood, Rachel McCaskill, Eye for an Eye, Stuart Rogers, Jamie's Madhouse, Hogdan Munch, Lee Gould. Oh, everyone's here. Everyone's here. We've got 160 people already. Please do us a favour. I don't like doing the whole YouTuber thing. Subscribe, click the like button, ring the bell, put a stupid hat on. But I'll tell you what, if you do share the stream, if you click like, if you share it on like a couple of different platforms like Facebook, Twitter, whatever, it really does help. We're trying to connect consciousness here on Rise Above. That's what we're doing. That's actually what we're doing, okay? So I'm just waiting for Master Lee to join us, but you know, in usual business, I have got some nice announcements. Let's have a look here. Before I share the screen, I better get back to the good part. Massive shout out to everyone that tuned in on Monday night for the Ukraine special. We'll be chatting about that in a minute. So tonight is Deep Part 2. Myself and Inner Guardians, aka Master Lee. We're going to be building on last Wednesday's chat about, what was it about? Non-physical ascension, about building the spiritual and the ethereal body. Here he is. Say his name and he appears. Inner Guardians, welcome back.
Salutations, everybody.
Salutations, Master Lee. You joined us just in time. You had a little internet attack there, didn't you?
No, I was making a cup of coffee.
Oh, you were making a cup of coffee. Well, it did go red while you were away. Okay. Yeah. Are we going to have the pleasure of seeing you on camera tonight?
Possibly, maybe. We'll see.
I put him right on the spot there. It's just because we were chatting on camera a minute ago. He's in the covert van. He looks wicked. Honestly, it looks really, really good. Okay. So, We're not going to go like straight ahead, balls deep, like we did last week, because I have got a few things to talk about first. So yeah, we're joined by Mr. Inner Guardians, aka Master Lee Sensei, my good friend, my mentor, and part of the team here at Rise Above, our metaphysical, personal protection, and occult specialist. I've got to say a big thank you to everyone that subscribed to our second channel. It really helps us out, because if you want to get this kind of content right that you can share with your friends and family that might be sitting on the fence of normie land and want to step into the light, I'd spend a lot of time editing down the content and making it into more palatable bite-sized chunks. There's some really good interviews on there, and there's also content on this channel which you do not see on Rise Above Live. My travel videos, the investigations, the one-off documentaries. The description to this channel is in the comments, in the description. The link is in the description. That's what I meant to say. Please do subscribe. There's a lot more rabbit on there. If you like rabbit, and I've been watching the comments, everyone likes toasted rabbit, get over to this other channel. Trust me, you won't be disappointed. Right. I keep saying it, it's happened. There are new releases in the t-shirts on the website. It's riseabove.news/shop. If anyone can spot them, I'll just give you a hint. I've been promising the ladies some designs for a very long time, right? These are both, they're composite images. I've nicked some bits and pieces from other things, and I've hand drawn it myself on the tablet. So we've got the sexy sort of Looney Tunes bunny geisha on the Rise Above logo. And on the right, we've got the trans techno geisha, right? So this is like the geisha range. I've got some more nice Japanese designs actually, and these are in ladies' cuts. At the moment, they're only available in white, but I will be coming with other colours. If you buy these t-shirts, all of the profits go into the production of this glorious dream, comrades. It doesn't come for free. I mean, I've got to pay for all this. I will always broadcast for free. You'll never have to pay for Rise Above, but someone's got to pay for it. So please do support us by buying a t-shirt. We don't like asking for handouts or cryptocurrencies or pats on the back or anything like that. We'd rather sell you a product that you like. It's very high quality. These are all organic cotton. And also, it's got Rise Above sigil magic built into it. Every time you wear one of these out in the creator realm, you are radiating the energy of Rise Above out to others. And imagine when you see someone else wearing a Rise Above t-shirt, they see you. That's an instant friendship. There you go. That one's on the house.
Excellent.
The second release is the Graphinator. This meme was conceptualized by our man Virus Man, and I redrew it on the tablet. So this is hand drawn by me. I'll make it a little bit bigger so you can see, because this is really quality. This one comes in white, black, red, or khaki. And yeah, hand drawn by myself on the Samsung S7, and it's Bill Gates as the Graphinator, starring Anthony Fauci, Bill Gates, and Klaus Schwab. And it says something like, in the future, the parasite government have the role for ultimate tyranny, the Graphinator, something like that. Obviously, all of these t-shirts come with Rise Above QR codes on the back, so people can scan it and go straight to the website. And I've also got to give a huge shout to Commander Sagehead. Not only is he one of our leading memeticians, he has also just stepped in to anti-propaganda. I can't say and speak tonight. Anti-propaganda minister here at Rise Above, and he's taking over the website with his comrade. We're very, very excited. Who's this? NWNO. I have 3 full... No, here it is. I have 3 full rabbit t-shirts, different designs, and I can absolutely concur. They are very good quality. We'll be buying some more soon. Does the job without even speaking. Rise Above. Thank you, NNWO. That's what I'm talking about. Yeah, we only get really good quality stuff. I never sell like cheap t-shirts or hoodies. That's my promise. So yeah, if you want to get these t-shirts, www.riseabovenews.com/shop. Okay. That's enough plugging the merchandise. Right, I'm really excited about some of the shows we've got coming up, Master Lee, I've got to say. Our next Friday, which is Friday the 11th, we are inviting back Terror Slim. He's going to be talking about his personal battle with dodgy characters within the urban music scene, suspected dark occultists and people that are throwing up one eye signs in their music videos, etc. Maybe some names we haven't mentioned on this show before. He's going to be revealing some stuff. Terror has literally been on the front line, facing demons, staring them dead in the eye. I can't wait to meet the guy in person. He's coming directly to the studio. We're going to be doing a lot more in-person interviews now. That is the idea. We want to get more physical, less digital. So Terror will be coming to the studio. Really excited about that.
Yeah, looking forward to them.
Yeah. We've also got, look at this, and by the way, these are my thumbnails. My thumbnail game is up in. We've also got, this is going to be on the 1st of April. It'll actually be show 61. JD is coming back to talk about, he's not actually writing a book, but you know the Book of Eli, that film, the Book of JD, he's going to be talking about his new project going off-grid into his camper van. He's going to be talking about his whistleblower experiences, because he's a youth worker. He didn't really talk about this last time he came on the show. So this is going to be a really, really interesting chat. And again, he's coming down in person, in his van, to the studio to meet us in person. So it's all about meeting up this year, I think. I think it's about making physical connections and trying to meet people off of the screen. What do you say about that, Master Lee? Are you on the same page?
Yeah. I mean, I'm mobile now, so I'm going to be traveling around the UK. Maybe in let me see, April onwards.
Okay.
I'll be moving about.
Awesome. Well, we're definitely going to get you down to the studio, as we keep promising. We'll actually make it happen now. You've got your off-grid van together, so really excited about that. Big up JD and Terra Slim. And before we talk about Monday, I'm also going to say on the 25th of March, I haven't made the thumbnail for this one yet, we've got Mark Devlin back on March the 25th. He's going to be coming into the studio talking about his new book, Musical Truth Volume 3, and he's also going to be at the Crucible playing a live set of conscious hip-hop, reggae, UK grime, the lot. It's going to be ace. We're really looking forward to it. It's the first time we've had him in the fully fledged new studio. So we're really looking forward to, that'll be the third time we've had Mark on, actually, yeah. Excellent stuff. Okay, so, right, I think Inner Guardians, I'm going to give both of us a collective pat on the back for Monday night. The response has been amazing. I think we're almost on like 6,000 views in a couple of days. We got reshared by UK Column, because we mentioned some of their findings, so that was a good look. So we've definitely got some new subscribers off the back of that. Let me just silence my other tab here. Sorry about that, guys. Maybe you can't hear anyway. I don't know. So yeah, it was extensive. I think we went for 3 hours in the end, wasn't it? 3 hours, 22 minutes, and 33 seconds or something like that.
Yeah,
it actually was. That's the crazy thing. It was something like that when we were talking about. No, there's no way I can get it down to the second, because when I press end stream, I mean, if I timed how long it takes to end the stream, whether it's 3.8 seconds or whatever, but it's not precise.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, some of my short videos have been like 33 seconds, and that's not intentional. It's because it's actually quite difficult to put it down to seconds.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. When I share the stream on Facebook each week, I do deliberately try to share it with 33 pages or something like that, or tag 33 people. Big up Sheep Farm, Hang Tight Dom and Chris. So I'm really pleased with this. I think I haven't really seen a lot of other alternative media apart from UK Column properly going in like we did. So I'm very proud of what we did on Monday night, and I think it's a good thing to have a record. If anyone's going to be searching through YouTube and their feeds, and if there's a chance someone wants to find out about what really was going on in the Ukraine or is going on, I hope we might have given them the other side of the story and hopefully presented the third option.
Yeah, well, the stuff I'm going to talk about tonight will actually lead on from what is going on right now. Okay. There'll be a lot of connections. I'm not going to go into too much detail tonight because I don't want to deviate into current events, but people will see the connections as we go through it.
Okay, sure. Obviously, there is a lot of memes going on about what's going on over in the Ukraine at the moment. So we've got a couple here from Auntie Koviet, which are pretty stellar. Some sort of like old school, Carry On movies or something. It looks like, memeing out of control at the moment. Now, I have, since Monday, I've been going for it on Facebook. Here's a little example of the kind of stuff I've been putting out. Obviously with some proper research as well. But basically, Al Gore took me out yesterday. 7-day ban. And do you know what the funny thing I got actually taken out for in the Guardians? Right.
Well, I reckon it's your profile picture.
That's what I was thinking. But
yeah, I think they made excuses.
It was officially because this picture here on the right, this was my profile picture, and the brand new Soviet Union decals here from Commander Sagehead. That was my background. That is apparently not what got me banned. What got me banned was I posted actually a picture of the Ukrainian National Guard holding up a flag with a swastika on it. That's what got me banned. But the funniest thing of all is that only that day I was sharing something from Meta saying that they're actually suspending their ban on people sharing far-right, nationalist and neo-Nazi stuff because of the Azov battalion in Ukraine. They were actually having to put an embargo on their own hate speech terms to allow people to share stuff from a neo-Nazi thing, which I did. So, yeah,
relative morality.
Yeah, I think this profile pic is available for anyone that wants to use it. It's on the Telegram. I shared it on the Telegram. So, yeah.
So if you want to get banned, you can use that, yeah.
Yeah, if you want to get Al Gored, like body bags for a week, I respawn in 5 days. There's definitely a meme there, Sagehead. I know you're listening.
Well, it's like a battlefield, isn't it, on social media?
It is. It literally is a digital battlefield.
Yeah.
Well, it was, and I swear in the Guardians, when I get taken out, right, it's always when I've cracked a joke about, I wonder if I'll get banned today, or I've even said it in a private message to someone, I would really love to share this, but I don't want to get banned, not at this critical stage of the digital battle. And then lo and behold, 4 or 5 hours later, yeah, that's hate speech.
I think somebody's watching the WhatsApp groups.
Yeah, absolutely. So, tomorrow is the 3rd of the 3rd, isn't it? So it's day 33 tomorrow. Okay.
Yeah, keep your boots on.
Keep your boots on tomorrow. Oh yeah, that's what we were saying on
physical and metaphysically speaking.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so Al Gore, as this meme explains here, has basically just taken me out as a wanted poster on the outside of YouTube. Al Gore and Sons anti-rabbit services, sponsored by the Soviet Union, have come in and he's unloaded 2 barrels on me.
Well, that was done before your ban, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, this would be when Double LMC was deleted from YouTube. This happened maybe halfway through 2021.
What this meme?
No, not this meme. When this actually happened, when Double LMC, my original channel that had 5.5K, that I'd had for years. That's when that got who'd.
But this particular meme came out.
Oh yeah, this meme is brand new.
It's before your ban.
Yes. Oh right, yeah, it did.
So you created a reality there.
Oh fuck! I didn't even think about that. We can thank the Sagehead for this one. Commander Sagehead created this one, and then within 24 hours, basically Al Gore did take me out and skin my rabbits. So,
I'll tell you what, right? It's not a bad thing to get banned because we all need a break. It's been intense.
I literally couldn't take a break. I could not spend more than 15 minutes away from the console or my phone because there was so much going on. There was so much catalyst. I was like, I can't just let some absolute peasant chuck all this on a bonfire. I need to recatalyze this and make some energy out of it because, Jesus, there was a lot to be generated. So much catalyst on the table.
I will be de-occulting this particular subject tonight.
Awesome. I can't wait.
Sense.
Yeah. So for me and Al Gore, it's always been a bit of a cat and a mouse situation. Thank you, Auntie Koviat. But the fact is, and I'm just speaking in memes here, this all happened because of one thing that we all know that I did. Ever since the old Serco speech, Al Gore has been so hot on my tail that basically it's like I was speaking to Mark Anthony about this actually earlier because he's in a similar situation. He's now banned on both of his profiles. Mark is an underground artist and he's also the Chief Minister of Information for the Global Rastafari Council. He's a very powerful individual. I was having an amazing conversation with him today actually, and he was saying that it's almost like you post one thing that Al Gore doesn't actually have any rules against, but they really don't like it. And then they'll wait for something that you might casually post and then get you on that. And I've definitely felt that happening because as soon as I changed my profile picture to this, I knew that was going to create a problem. Like that is I mean, how could I have made it worse? Like turn it into Putin, or I don't know. I mean, but yeah, so it's a constant battle. It's a constant battle against Al Gore. What can we say? I mean, look at the problems that you have, which are demonstrated by this meme here. Here we've got Zuckerberg and Al Gore in like a remote viewing van, and saying, "Quick, he's about to go full rabbit, jam his connection." And then you're saying, "I love the rabbit footstool, the white rabbit footstool that you've got."
I thought it was a rabbit slipper or something like that.
Well, it is like a massive rabbit slipper, but it's sort of like a futon. Yeah. So okay, that's sort of like the end of my meme show. Yeah, so please don't forget to buy a t-shirt. So we are now ready for the bit where Master Lee rabbit holes us 333 times, as demonstrated by this epic bit here from Auntie Coviet. Okay, so the third option, right? We were let's have a little interlude into this, because last week we were talking about feeding the soul. We were talking about service to other. And now, before you go deep, I want to mention a little project that myself and Mrs. Murdoch have been, so I say, conceptualising over the weekend. Because I've also been talking tonight about also a need to start making more physical connections and start making proper physical networks with like-minded people that are on our wavelength, to take it off the internet, basically. Now, as some people know, Mrs. Murdoch has recently quit her job and is going cottage industry, doing her hair, stuff like that. And she's also getting really interested in things like essential oils. We've got a bit of an eye to the east. We've been going to the Far East for a long time, and we know that in the East, people use a lot more oils with their skin and their hair. We really neglect these oils in the West. So she's looking into that. She's also looking into Indian head massage. Now, we've got quite a lot of room here at Rise Above HQ. It's a 5-bedroom house. We've got quite a large garden as well. And, well, I don't want to say too much, because at this stage it's a conception. You know, I usually make things happen, so it's going to happen, but I don't want to say too much. But our idea is sort of like, you know, like a micro retreat. A lot of people are doing an Airbnb, something like that. Well, imagine if you're an organic, pure blood person like us, whatever you want to call it, whatever we are, and you only want to deal with people like us, and you want to go to a place where your values are going to be in tune with where you want to go and stay. Now, I live in a really nice place, halfway in between Poole and Bournemouth, right on the beach. It's a fantastic location. But I thought, what if we had like a micro retreat / Airbnb? It wouldn't be advertised on Airbnb or Booking.com. It'd be very exclusive, probably by interview only, to be honest. But you could come and stay, partake in meditation, ceremonies, massages, rituals,
initiation.
Initiation. Not only that, a space where we could have small seminars, gatherings, workshops, like an evening with Master Lee. Yeah, for small groups, 8, 12 people, 15 people maybe, with food, with drink. Something like this. I've got a lot of ideas, and I've got the facilities to do it. And we've talked a lot last week about how much will it be? £33 a night. Yeah, and if you like to do the kind of things that we like to do, and you want to go to a place that's in a really cool location and stay there, use it as an Airbnb, maybe you want to rent it out for an evening for a reading class or a yoga group or something like that. We've got big plans. I haven't worn my shaman's hat for a long time. Maybe that we might be able to provide some personal, bespoke, introspective experiences. I don't know. It's just an idea. But anyway, I have many things in my head I'm not going to talk about right now. But we've got all the logos, all the branding all sorted out. When it's ready, I'll be revealing it. But yeah, show me in the comments section if you might be interested in coming down to the South Coast and having a little stay, a couple, an individual, a really small group, maybe something like that. Yeah, let me know what you think.
Well,
Just an idea.
It's a good idea.
Well, at the end of the day, I want to create a cottage industry for my wife. I want to create a service for people that maybe they can't find anywhere else. And I want to start making more physical networks with the family that we're building. There's no point in building this family that we keep talking about if we're only ever online.
Yeah.
So yeah, watch this space. It will happen. So yeah, that's my little this is my little announcement. I'm obviously going to be talking about that more going forward. So, off the back of last week, I mean, how should we come into this, Inner Guardians?
Well, I'm going to do a very, very brief recap on last week, like a summary or the gist,
Sure.
and then we'll be extending it a bit further, going a bit more inwards. I will be explaining the dynamics and the functions of humanity and how it relates to the cosmos, and also what is playing out right now in our 3D reality. But not only that, we're going to be looking into a little bit as to who is to blame, is the first question, and secondly, what can we do about it?
That's what we like.
Yeah, they're the sort of essential questions that need to be asked. But before I go on, I just want to preface this session or podcast, whatever you want to call it. If you're not interested in the inner workings of humanity, if you're not interested in going inward, if you're not interested in finding out what you can actually do within this realm, then I suggest that you switch off or you go somewhere else.
Go out, because we're going in.
Yeah, that's a good phrase.
Yeah,
so
it's a bit of a catchphrase for my joint.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah.
So I just want to preface it with that. Now, so if you're not interested in this sort of thing, don't start complaining, don't start moaning, don't start putting negativity.
Just put a different channel on.
Yeah, go outwards, and I will be discussing what it actually means to go inward and what it means to go outwards, and how it's used against us, how this function, how this mechanism is used and has been used for, well, since time began up until this current moment with the current events taking place right now. So last week I spoke about the higher being bodies, and we've got like the physical body, and it goes all the way through to essentially the immortal body. Now, when you develop the immortal body, it's done on an inward trajectory as opposed to an external. So if we say the powers that shouldn't be, they're only interested in the externalization of immortality, which I will be going into a little bit more deeply in a few moments. So there's kind of two ways of achieving immortality. One is to go inwards, and one is to try and perform it externally. And those that are trying to perform this type of thing externally are the players behind what you're seeing manifest right now in 3D time and space. And for the most part, it's not necessarily healthy or productive in terms of the larger reality. Locally, yeah, it might be okay. Now, there is a saying in the esoteric groups that if you want to ask the people that built the pyramids, you can. How? Because they're still here. So
Okay.
I'll just give you a few seconds to kind of digest that. A little bit of I don't know, rabbit foot.
Okay, I think I know what you mean.
Yeah, so we're talking about the subjects of immortality, or the ability to reanimate or respawn, as we just already discussed, digitally.
Yeah. So, okay, I know what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah. So when it comes to the subjects of like the occult, esoteric, most people don't really have a good understanding or understanding as to what it actually means. For the most part, most people think anything that is occult is satanic. When in actual fact, it can be quite the opposite. Now, what you've got occulted knowledge, which just means hidden knowledge. Now, it's hidden for it can be hidden for two reasons. One is to protect and preserve certain knowledge, and the other one would be to use it against humanity. So that will kind of differentiate between, say, the light occultists. Remember, these are just terms; these are just words. It can be described in many different ways, but it's easier to conceptualize it as light occultists and dark occultists. So the dark occultists want to keep you in the dark, and they enjoy the benefits of the light or being illuminated in one way or another, albeit relatively speaking. So they have certain knowledge that is hidden. They keep it to themselves while they keep humanity in the darkness, so that they can do what they want to do. So they can benefit. They can create a reality of which inevitably you will become a slave to. Now, that's talking in terms of self and other on an external plane. But the greatest form of slavery is self-slavery. And
Yep.
the way that that's achieved is by self-deception and the lack of knowledge to your inner functioning. So I'm going to be going through the basic mechanisms of inner functioning and how those of the dark occult spectrum will be able to use it against you on a daily basis, on a lifetime basis, and even civilization basis, because it's on a scale. So you've got to look at things in terms of a scale, from self all the way through to the beginning of creation and all the civilizations. So as an example, humans are born, they grow up, and then they die. Well, you can actually correlate that with civilizations, and they understand this. They know this, so they can recognize when a civilization is growing up, or sorry, when it's born, when it's growing up, and then when it's about to die, and then they need to bring in the next type of civilization, of which they pass on the baton of control. Is that making sense? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, you can interject at any time, or if I'm not making sense, please let me know.
Well, I just want to pick that apart so I make sure I think everyone else is understanding what I think you're saying. Is that
Sure.
to rewind slightly, when you said about in your occult groups, if you want to ask how they built the pyramids, you can ask those people because they're still around. What you mean by that is those who were the rulers around when the pyramids were built are the dark occultists who have the power to remember their past lives and then be cognitive through their reanimations. So they are still alive today, and they're the same consciousness and they remember. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what. I just wanted to make sure that I had it right, and then hopefully.
Yeah. So what that will give you is a cumulative effect. So they, unlike most humans that are born, live a life, gather some knowledge, and then become food for the moon.
Yeah.
When they, in whichever way they reanimate or reincarnate, they potentially do not remember anything. Hence why most people don't remember any past existences. Well, with certain techniques of developing higher being bodies or the inner world, you have the ability to retain the fragments of an existence. Yeah.
Yeah, and if your family had been perfecting that over generations, you could potentially get to a point where you could reincarnate and remember everything, remember your mission, and carry on like it was yesterday.
Yeah, and you can also translate this into the physical. So as an example, right, and this will give confirmations to what I'm talking about. So if you look at civilizations and you look at the leaders of the civilizations, the primary task of any leader, be it national or world leader, their primary task is not necessarily how and what they're doing with their leadership, which is obviously important. But for them, their most important task is how it's passed on to the next leader. And there's a reason for that. And there's an obvious reason for that. So as an example, if you're a leader who, say, commits lots of crimes, you have to be very careful who you pass the baton on to. So you will probably spend the last 10 years of your leadership focused on who the baton will be passed on to, not necessarily what you're actually doing. Now, if you can guarantee that the baton will be passed on to an ally or a friend or somebody of kindred, then you're protected on a physical level. Yeah. So you avoid jail. I'm talking purely physical. Now, if you're a leader, dictator, whatever, that commits lots of heinous crimes, and the baton gets passed on to a competitor or somebody that's not of kindred or whatever, or a different faction, you're going to be in trouble.
Yeah.
Because you're either going to be executed or put in jail, or you won't be able to do talks around the world earning millions of pounds for your family, mentioning no names.
There's a few people you could be talking about there.
So this kind of gives you the basic structure of the leadership of this realm. Although I don't really want to focus too much upon that, but it has to be discussed. And also, it's very good to look at the physical manifestation, because as without, so within, as within, so without. So there's definitely always a correlation between the external workings of existence and the internal. The main problem being is that we only really focus on the external manifestations of this reality. Hence why we're going inward. And if you're only interested in the external manifestations, then this is not for you, what I'm going to be sharing.
People that are only interested in external manifestations wouldn't have even got this far into the podcast, I don't think.
So it's important to be able to balance the two. There's many symbols that will suggest as within, so without. I mean, you've got like basic geometry that generally is always explaining that. It's conceptualizing the intangible concept of as within, so without. I would probably say 99% of geometry will, if you know how to read it or observe it or see it, it will reveal this concept as within, so without, self, other, and the relationship between the two. And you can zoom right in, you can zoom right out with that. So you can even look at how you relate to yourself. You could say, how does your mind relate to your emotions? How does your emotions relate to your body? There's always a relationship. A healthy relationship is always reciprocal. An unhealthy relationship is parasitical, although it does serve a purpose in one form or another. But I don't really want to go into kind of parasite stuff, although I will mention it probably once as we go through.
Okay.
And just to sort of just a little bit more of a preface, just to give people a rough understanding as to where I'm coming from, and most people probably don't know my background with regards to this knowledge or how I was able to attain it. I'd say my initiation was probably when I was 8 years old, and I have mentioned this before on the show, but I'll kind of remind people of it.
Please do.
My initial initiation was after reading a book called Astral Projection, which my mother was a yoga practitioner, and she used to have lots of esoteric books on the bookshelf. At the age of 8, I used to read some of these books, and I wouldn't tell my mother. I would take the books, take them into the bedroom, and read them. For whatever reason, I could actually resonate and understand everything that these books were saying, even at a young age. To me, that made far more sense than the education that I was getting at school. In fact, I didn't do too well at school, mainly because all I saw was contradictions that I couldn't align with. It wasn't to say I wasn't intelligent, far from it. Potentially, I could have done well academically had I followed the education system. But for one reason or another, and I think it was because of my initiation at the age of 8, or self-initiation, to the larger reality. And basically what happened was, I read the book, I practiced the exercises in the book, and I was able to perform what it said would happen, which was basically to project out of my body. In fact, I found it very easy. I would say as I got older, it got more difficult as I merged more with the 3D manifestation.
Common theme, actually.
Yeah, I think a lot of people can relate to what I'm saying. It's almost like the younger you are, the closer you are to the larger reality and to the non-physical aspects. So, as an example, most people have invisible friends, and then it gets to a point where it's not considered useful to have imaginary friends, especially if you go to a job interview or something. You're probably not going to fare too well.
Doesn't go down well. The imaginary friend in the job interview. It's a real. That's a real red cross. That one normally.
Yeah. So it's normally your parents that will actually eliminate this kind of imagination or the
Yeah, they've got some tablets for that now, haven't they?
Yeah.
Loads of different types of tablets for the imaginary friend. The imaginary friend can get prescribed some tablets too.
Yeah. And another reason why I'm sharing this like personal information is because I believe it will help other people to not maybe feel so crazy. Because I would put money on it that a lot of people that don't do well in life or actually find themselves having psychiatric treatment, it's probably because maybe they've seen too much. They've seen the larger reality, and they didn't know how to manage that.
Yeah.
And they didn't have the right support people around them or mechanisms around them. I would say years gone by, quite a few years gone by, it was a different setup, and it was almost encouraged maybe by the leaders of the tribe or the shamans and so on and so forth. This sort of there was more of a support system for the non-physical. There was a point in time when everything was made physical, and a certain type of functioning was instilled or implanted into humanity that made people only focus externally on physical matter.
How long
or
ago do you think that
materialism.
was?
Well, I think it was a gradual process. I don't think it could have been done overnight. I think possibly, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm very dubious about
Are you talking
timescales of history.
thousands of years or like hundreds of thousands of years?
I would say, well, I don't think reality is as old as we think, although I actually don't, I actually don't think that history is real. But that's another story. History. I think potentially history is an illusion. A lot of the historical subjects are installed into our known reality. But then, I go with the theory of eternal recurrence. So you reach a certain stage in your development and you have and live the same life time and time again until you perfect that one life. But once again, it's another story, and that's a very difficult concept to grasp. And I don't really want to try and either convince or explain it today.
Sure.
It's something that you have to kind of how do I say? You have to kind of entertain the idea for a while, and then after a period of time, with things like deja vu, being able to catch your own reality, maybe glitching or things like that you actually start to see it.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah. So I'll give you two working examples of that. And I don't want to go sort of on a tangent or off topic, but it's all related. I mean, at the end of the day, we're syncretists, so pretty much everything I say will be connected to something else. That's the nature of reality.
Of course.
So many years ago, I was into motorcycles. I have said this before, but there's probably a lot of people that have not heard this. I was into motorcycles. I remember one night I was riding home, and there's a technique that you use when you're riding a motorcycle, is that you try to make eye contact with the driver. So when you're going past a junction, if you can't make eye contact with the driver, then potentially they haven't seen you. Yeah. So that's something that you really work on. Well, anyway, I was riding home. I was going past a T junction. I couldn't make eye contact with the driver. I couldn't see that they'd see me, and they pulled out. I literally kind of closed my eyes and opened them, and I was still on my bike, going along. No harm, nothing. But I kind of sensed that in one reality, that car pulled out and hit me. So there's another reality out there somewhere where Lee died on a motorcycle that night, and everybody went to my funeral.
Holy shit.
Sorry,
I thought that's a gosh button. Sorry. It's the wrong button.
Now,
Wow.
I've had 5 of those experiences, so I'm probably on my 6th rotation of eternal recurrence.
Gosh, that's better. You've talked about this before with eternal recurrence, that you believe you've died a number of times before.
Yeah, yeah. It could be more times, but they're the times I'm sort of conscious of this sort of phenomenon. Now, they do say that when you enter eternal recurrence, it basically means you're near the end of this realm being useful. And I'm going to say this because I'm sure there's plenty of other people out there that will feel the same. There's often times where I actually feel like this realm isn't serving the purpose. It's actually becoming a bit of a hindrance in many ways. Whereas the people around me seem to be entertained by this realm. They'll do anything to stay in this realm. They'll do anything to lengthen their time in this realm. I've always had a sense that I don't care. In fact, quite the opposite. It's like, imagine in your last year at school and you're told you've got to go back for another year
Can't
and
wait
another
to
year.
get out.
Yeah, kind of, yeah. But I don't want to be dismissive or disassociate myself with the fact that I'm here for whatever reason. But I'm sure other people will have a sense. And I think, to be honest, I think we're at a stage now where reality is sick of this place.
That 424 guy that I've been sharing his videos, who talks about his spirit molecule experiences and meeting the machine elves. He talks about that they said to him last year that they've downloaded a new version of the Matrix and they had to be upgraded and stuff like that. And he's telling these crazy stories, which to a lot of people would sound totally nuts, unless you know what he's talking about. And I happen to do know what he's talking about. I've had multiple encounters with entities in different states of consciousness, and I don't mean little brushes. I mean real encounters where intense downloads have been given to me. The kind of downloads that left me quivering like a baby afterwards, and people like, what the hell happened? The kind of downloads I couldn't talk about for a long time, and I can't even barely conceptualize. So once I'd had these kind of experiences, my fear of death was completely removed. And that doesn't mean that I think I'm a daredevil, and I'm not like I would do anything that I don't care about dying. But the fear of actually letting go of the machine, the suit, the meat sack.
Yeah.
Because once you have had the sensation of consciously leaving the meat sack and knowing that you haven't just left the meat sack, you're not even in the same vibrational range as the meat sack even exists in anymore. Once you've had those type of experiences and had some time to digest it, this isn't quite so impressive as it used to be. It's not quite so immersive.
Yeah, and the way that the function for that is that you've started to develop, or you have higher being bodies. If you don't, then you've only got this reality to kind of deal with. And I said it last week that those people do quite well in this reality because they've only got one reality to deal with. That's the physical reality. When you start going into higher being bodies or the inner world or other types of bodies, then you've got 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 realities to deal with simultaneously, which can actually be quite challenging. It's like having 4 jobs.
Yeah, and working at them all at the same time. They're not in shifts. That you have to work at all 4 jobs simultaneously.
Yeah, and with that, with everybody requires energy for existence, and this kind of leads us to things like perpetual motion, which is kind of like the holy grail for a lot of scientists to be able to figure that out. Well, for the most part, I think that was already figured out, and there's certain entities and factions that use this capability. And once again, the dark occultists will hide it from the general public,
Yeah.
and potentially for humanity's safety. I will go into this a bit more. In fact, I've got quite a lot to go through. I did actually send you a message saying, like, I don't even know if I can broadcast this or present it. There's so much, and to be honest, I've actually had to delete quite a lot of it.
Please don't delete anymore.
Well, maybe after 6 hours, you might say different.
We've only got like another hour and a half, I'm afraid, tonight anyway.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay.
Do you want to have a break, play a music video before we go into this? Because we're almost at an hour now. Or do you want to start it?
Yeah, we can do. I mean, I've got a few more sort of.
Okay, yeah. Well, let's play around for another 5 minutes before you go balls deep, and then we'll have a music video, music tune break.
Yeah. Okay. Well, what I'll do is I'll carry on with sort of why I'm in this position to be able to speak such things.
Yeah. Because we've got a lot of new viewers that haven't seen the early stuff with you, Lee. So maybe a little bit more of that is good.
Yeah. Now, I must stress that I'm not trying to suggest that I'm enlightened or I'm the only one or you must get all your knowledge from me. Far from it. I'm a syncretist. So by definition, that means that I have pieces of the jigsaw, but so do you. So I could have an interaction with literally anybody and they can teach me something. They can give me a piece of the jigsaw puzzle. Even one piece, maybe 3 pieces, maybe 33 pieces, who knows? But everybody has something to offer, even those who are purely on the physical spectrum and have no interest. So they would act as the denying force, and they can actually be very useful.
Yeah. The friction.
Yeah, because they offer and supply the friction. Okay, so the age of 8. I believe that was my initiation into non-physical reality or the larger reality. And then going on from that, I studied various different things. I was brought up a Christian and I've got a good understanding of Christianity. Well, the known Christianity. In later years, I did study esoteric Christianity, which is actually completely different to the exoteric or the normal form of Christianity as we know it. And then I've also studied in lots of different groups. Predominantly, they are Russian esoteric schools. And I don't think it's no coincidence that they're Russian esoteric schools and we've got this particular situation. For the most part, I don't actually think it's a new situation. Russia has played a massive part in this reality for a long, long time. If you look at history, with a bigger pair of glasses, you'll clearly see that Russia has been a massive influence in this realm. And just to sort of expand on that, a lot of people are confused as to what Russia is. Is it a country? Is it ideology? Is it a union? Is it republic? Is it communism? What is it? Well, for the most part, Russia is a culture. They see themselves more as a concept as opposed to borders. It's more of an ideology of syncretism in one way or another. Now, I'm not going to sit here and start to be pro-Russian. I'm just basically telling you how certain things are. And I don't think it's by coincidence that a lot of the esoteric schools have come from Russia, and also the dark occultists have come from Russia and are playing a massive role at the moment. And this is why you will see the sort of division, the conflict, the posturing between Russia and the West.
Yeah.
This goes far deeper than people will ever imagine.
Yes.
And even with the science and moving forwards with those on the horizontal line who are looking for immortality. And I did share this a few months back, that personally I believe that it will be the Russians that will actually crack this synthetic universe with regards to creating avatars, so on and so forth. Around about 2045, I think it's projected.
Wow. When you say avatars, you mean like the digital twin idea?
Yeah, the synthetic immortality. which is
Right. Okay.
which is this kind of the scientist concept of soul, or the ability to live forever. Now,
In a synthetic body.
yeah, no, you can even relate communism to this concept of self and other, and most people don't really understand this. I was actually a socialist many years ago. Well, I use that term loosely. Until I traveled the world, I spent a lot of time in Cuba and Russia. I come to the conclusion that socialism, communism generally doesn't work. But if you look at the origins of it, it's actually it's quite a good idea, because it's about not living for self, but living for other. It's the relationship between the me and the we. And this is something else that I spoke of with the I, me, we, so on and so forth. So it's about the manifestation and harmonizing the we, which once again, this goes back to what is Russia. It's a concept of the we as opposed to the I. And this is why there's a clash between two civilizations of the West. If you look at the West, it's all about I. It's all about the freedom to do what I want to do. I want to express myself in a way that I can, and it doesn't matter. I need to be protected for the way I express myself. Whereas, say, Russian philosophy, ideology is more like you must do what's good for the greater good, even if it means sacrificing the self.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what we're seeing is a physical, or what I'm describing as the physical manifestation of quite esoteric ideas. Now, I don't want to get too bogged down into dates and things like that, but if you look at, actually, I'll say this after, excuse me, after the break. I'll just finish off with what I was saying about why I'm in this position. So I spent a lot of years in esoteric groups, predominantly Russian. I was also initiated into Santeria, which is actually Cuban, and I actually spent some time with dark occultists. So I've got a very good understanding, working knowledge.
That's gonna upset some people. That's gonna send alarm bells ringing for some people that you've spent time with dark occultists, Master Lee.
Yeah, but I think to have a good understanding, excuse me, you need to see it from both sides. Now, what I will say is that there is a lot of factions within the dark occult that don't consider themselves as dark occultists, and I will explain that after the break. And it does actually make sense. Now, I'm not going to try and justify the art of dark occultism or Satanism or anything like that, but I will explain why they actually believe that they're doing a service to humanity.
Ooh, okay, yeah, this is going to be interesting. I'm looking forward to this already. This is right up my street as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, just to finally finish off, so I broke away from the esoteric groups. The main reason for that was because I kind of felt that a lot of it was out of context, because they weren't actually working with the civilization that we're going into, as in the digital age. I had alarm bells ringing about the singularity and the hidden agendas that were manifesting, probably 15 years ago. So I broke away from the esoteric groups and looked at other subjects and experimented with different things, and realized that especially 2020, I realized that I've got knowledge that is useful to other.
You sure have.
Yeah. So in a way, my way of creating friction for myself, because I don't have to do this. I can stay hidden. I can keep the knowledge to myself. But for me to generate friction is to kind of put this information out there, and it does generate friction. There are consequences to the sharing of knowledge by putting the esoteric into the exoteric.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I always say nothing is for free. There's always a payment, and the reason for that is because I I go with the ideas of the ray of creation, the cosmic food chain, and that one thing must feed another. I see this play out in physical 3D manifestations. I've said this before. Take a look at your garden. Take a look at nature. Something is born, something it feeds, and it dies, and it feeds something else. You know, even your physical body will feed something at some point. Now, the should I say, the correct feeding would be reciprocal. The incorrect feeding would be parasitical.
Yeah.
So that's basically the two forms of feeding that you're seeing play out in this realm, and this obviously creates problems, and we're kind of left with this dilemma without the actual knowledge to be able to navigate our way through this dilemma. And this is the type of information that I bring forwards, and part of me bringing this forwards means that it creates friction for me. There's a payment, whether it's time, energy, people accusing you, people attacking you, people making comments about you. This generates friction, and it can be useful because it's about the struggle. And I will go a lot deeper into this struggle and what the struggle actually is and isn't. Yeah. Okay.
I'm really looking forward to it now. All right, guys. So, wow, we've got 446 people tuned in. I'm going to play 2 tunes. So this is your chance to roll one, go to the toilet, whatever, grab something to eat. Both of the first tune is from myself and Oma Beats. I was talking earlier on about when I was really into shamanism and helped a lot of people to, held the door open, shall we say, for people to have a little look inside. This one's called Came to the Jungle. We'll be back very soon.
So the spirits come along and they say to me, you have to go into the jungle and you're going to drink ayahuasca. So I went into the jungle, I found a shaman, and I drank ayahuasca. And during that first ceremony, I found my apprenticeship.
As we tear down Babylon, brick by brick, piece by piece, wash them to smithereens. ODYSEE, double L.
I came to this jungle looking for the shaman, to learn knowledge, to get trained. I've got questions, need explaining. Who manifests these spells we are making? Who talk for days, the word was spoken. The third eye's wide open, my 7 chakras awoken. Then the Babylon spell got broken. Come to the jungle, now I'm the shaman. Draw for the power of thunder, raven. It's no mortal combat, I won't draw for swords, I'm not on that. Why? The vibration's high. Can't test like an eye. I speak to the Buddha and Rastafari. When we chat to the prophet, it's all no lie.
With the shame I smoke with the Rasta, learn from the prophet, teach the pastor. They go serve the same master. Too many questions, one answer. With the shame I smoke with the Rasta, learn from the prophet, teach the pastor. They go serve the same master. Too many questions, one answer.
Deep in the jungle, knees in the dirt, next to the tribal leader. Speaking the words of the healer, I'm feeding the words. Seeking the teacher vine, mimosa creeper, MAOI inhibitor. Elio vine can't mimic her, safe for mixtures, boiled in vinegar. Recipe taught by ancient visitor. Feet on the ground, I feel like I'm slipping away. When my eyes look through to the clearing, the sun beats down and my face is burning. What's that in my peripheral hearing? Ingesting the chemical gateway, exiting the physical plane, inspecting the neural pathway, assessing the spiritual pain.
With the shame I smoke with the Rasta, learn from the prophet, teach the pastor. They go serve the same master. Too many questions, one answer. With the shame I smoke with the Rasta, learn from the prophet, teach the pastor. They go serve the same master. Too many questions, one answer.
It's no joke to drink ayahuasca.
Ayahuasca, alright, boga. One dose, game over. Heart of the forest, chilling with the elders, learning customs of ancient cultures. Shamanic technology, we fulfill the prophecy. No words describe this logically. Close both eyes, you might see properly. Wait, can you feel it? Hold it in before you release it. You've got the key to revealing the secret. They tried hard to conceal it. Wait, how you feeling? Is it illusion? Is it the real thing? Singing isn't always believing, hallucinating or lucid dreaming.
With the shame I smoke with the Rasta, learn from the prophet, teach the pastor. They go serve the same master. Too many questions, one answer. With the shame I smoke with the Rasta, learn from the prophet, teach the pastor. They go serve the same master. Too many questions, one answer.
long before man roamed these lands, there was a war in heaven. The victors declared themselves gods, while the vanquished were renamed Titans, and forever imprisoned within the bowels of Mount Tartarus.
Who is the architect? The truth is so incredible, we might just bust your head. Who is the architect? The truth is so incredible, we might just bust your head. Who is the architect? Who is the architect of all creation? You see, I can see the change in this vibration. Who are the architects? Who is the architect?
Hello, Neo. Who are you? I am the architect. I created the Matrix. I've been waiting for you.
Welcome back, comrades. Welcome back, Master Lee.
Salutations, everybody.
What did you think of this evening's musical choice?
Yeah, very, very appropriate.
I tried to. I haven't got that many tracks, but I tried to choose something appropriate for what we're talking about, or at least the flavour of what we're talking about. So I hope everyone's sitting comfortably. I hope you all have sound body and sound mind, because now we go whole rabbit. Okay. How do we want to start?
Right. Okay. So I kind of prefaced it a bit with the background of why I'm able to sit here and sort of give this knowledge out. I could go on and on, but I don't want to go into too much detail because I don't want to eat up the time about myself. So let's push forwards. If at any point you've got any questions or I'm not making sense, then just let me know.
Sure.
There is a particular type of language that is used in esoteric groups and for the occult, and it caters mainly for the psychic functioning and the subconscious. So I've had to kind of translate a lot of the subject matter so that it can be understood in a wider scope. Because what you've got to remember, most esoteric groups, when they meet in around about groups of maybe 6, 8, 12 people. So trying to communicate more than that, it actually becomes quite difficult. You may hear me struggle sometimes to try and conceptualize or explain certain subjects, and that's mainly the reason why. I could actually speak totally in esoteric language and it would just completely lose everybody, possibly.
Sure.
But as we go on and move forwards, I will be able to speak in more esoteric language and occulted language. For the most part, we've already kind of done that in some ways.
Well, in the most part, we've created our own occulted language.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that can be for many reasons. It could be to keep it occulted. It can be so that the wrong factions or people don't get this information. Because like I said, the reason why you have the occult is to preserve and protect knowledge, but it can also be used against humanity. So it's like you have a torch in a dark room, and somebody else is left in a dark room in the dark, and that's pretty much what is manifesting right now for the majority.
A great analogy there.
Yeah, and potentially it's lawful under cosmic law, and there is an analogy of, say, if you was in a prison and you wanted to escape, would it be useful to tell everybody?
Wouldn't necessarily be most conducive for your escape if everyone else was trying to escape at the same time. That's for damn sure.
Yeah, but if it was your aim for everybody to escape, would it be useful to tell everybody?
Well, no, not necessarily, because the more people that know about it, the more potential there is for it to be sabotaged.
Yeah. So what I'm alluding towards is the analogy of the prison. You want to escape, but you also want everybody else to escape. It would probably be better to keep it a little bit quiet, or maybe just have maybe 1, 2, 3 people know, and you escape together. And then when you're on the outside, you can help others escape.
Or come back with reinforcements, as it were.
Yeah, yeah. So quite often you can be of more assistance from the other side. That's what I'm alluding towards. And this is one of the reasons why even the light occultists are not too forthcoming with regards to information. Because a lot of people say, well, where are the light occultists? Why aren't they coming forward? Well, technically, they still can't. It's not helpful for the larger reality for everybody to have the knowledge for free, without the initiation, without the inner standing and the development of the inner functioning to even be able to perceive or conceptualize, as an example, the astral body or a non-physical body or a non-physical reality. it could actually be dangerous if people were taught how to manifest if they don't have the character. Think about it.
Yeah, absolutely. We talk a lot about co-creation and the power of manifestation and the power to physically affect the outward reality. First
Yeah.
of all, with our thoughts. And yeah, in the wrong hands, in the hands of someone irresponsible and reckless, that's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah. Yeah. So I want to I'm going to do this in sort of stages. I'm going to break it down, but they're all parts of the jigsaw puzzle. Because of what we spoke about on Monday and current events, I just wanted to start off with a little bit of information with regards to that. There is a lot more I could say about this, but that's probably for another session. So basically, you've got those that claim to be of the cosmos and not just this realm. So they have a deep knowing, a deep understanding that they are of the cosmos, and they claim to be of the cosmos and not just of this realm. Now, I'm not saying whether they're light occultists or dark occultists, but that's just a reality of.
But are you
the
talking
occult
about elite
knowledge.
bloodlines there, or are you talking about individuals by just by percentage of average population?
All.
All of the above.
Yeah, yeah, and what they do is they factor into reality what the cosmos is offering, and also what it requires. Now, when I talk of the cosmos, I don't necessarily mean like outer space or anything like that. Personally, I don't ascribe to the cosmology that is on offer at the moment with modern science and whatever.
Capricornican cosmology, is it?
Yeah,
How was Capricus?
Capicus, yeah. I don't really go along with that, and I don't go along with NASA. Blah blah blah. I've got my own personal take on it, of which I don't particularly feel the need to go into right now. I would say I'm definitely 100% a globe skeptic. Put it that way. Now you've got to be very, very careful when you talk about these things, because it's been so opted, and there's lots of traps and labels that the moment you start saying them, you get put into a certain.
Yeah, you don't want to be labelled as a FLer.
Yeah,
fleur.
exactly. Yeah. And also you got like the holographic reality and stuff like that as well. Like I said, I don't really want to go into that. But when I'm referring to the cosmos, it basically just means the larger reality system. Now, whether that's through a portal through the dome, whether that's through a ray of creation, there's many different ways to describe it. But it's basically when you have an understanding that there's more to reality than what you see in terms of 3D realm. Now, there's a name from, and it was actually born from Russian philosophers and religious folk, for the most part, and they call it cosmonism.
Cosmonism.
Yeah, and there's different. So it's kind of like, if you think about communism and the cosmos. Okay, now this is information that there's hardly any books about. You won't really get any information.
I have never heard of this before.
I mean,
are you talking about individual or small groups of occultists that are actively working in a collectivist manner towards feeding? What's the word? The cosmos, to feeding heavenly bodies with the energy of Earth. Is that what you're talking about?
Well, it's all kinds of things. Like I said, I can't go into all the detail of it. They're called cosmi, cosism. But basically, if you think about it, it's basically the ism of the cosmos. So it's like a movement. It's a movement of the cosmos, and there's many branches of this, and many factions. Some are kind of literalists, and some are more metaphysical. Some use it for religious purposes, and some use it for scientific. It's actually all of it. And if you look carefully in this realm, you'll be able to identify each different faction as to what branch they belong to and how they're using this. Because if you think about it, it's all the same thing. Even like Elon Musk. If you think about Elon Musk, he's actually very metaphysical. You know, he's talking about spawning life from different planets or whatever. Yeah, that is a form of it. This is a I wouldn't say ancient, but I'd say probably something like from 1850 to till now.
Okay.
This has been a thing, predominantly Russian based. And I'll give you some ideas.
Weren't Russian astronauts called cosmonauts?
Possibly, yes.
Yeah, they were. I'm sure.
Yeah,
When they were having the space race with America, they referred to their astronauts as cosmonauts. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if there's any link, but
right. Yeah, there will be. So, as an example, they're interested in something called ancestor dust. And think about it. It does actually make sense. So, for instance, when somebody dies, their body obviously decomposes and it dissipates into this reality. But what about the consciousness? What about the essence? What about the soul? Well, that potentially becomes some kind of ancestor cosmic dust. Now, if you have any knowledge of how even science kind of views this reality, that we're being showered down upon by cosmic rays, planetary dust, particles, so on and so forth. We breathe it in, yeah. But it goes out. So if you look at it as some kind of food cycle, the particles of essence go into the cosmos and it comes back at us. So as an example, some of these branches will believe that when somebody dies, their essence becomes some kind of dust or substance, and then it ends up on another planet. So this is why there's an obsession with interplanetary exploration.
this sounds scarily reminiscent of the highest level understanding in Scientology about thetans and that we were created out of the tiny particles of ancient dead extraterrestrials.
Yeah,
sounds very similar.
Yeah. You will
Well,
find
L. Ron Hubbard's got to rip the idea off them somewhere, hasn't he?
Well, he's part of it. I mean, I would safely say that he would be in one of the branches of this movement.
Right. Okay. There you go then. And he basically commercialized it, I guess, because he was a charlatan, and he sort of.
Well, he could have been an agent. They all serve a purpose one way or another, which I will kind of explain as we move forward. So basically, they're dealing with the subjects of ancestor dust, immortality, with the resurrection of all of the dead. So it's a form of death cult. Remember, nothing can be created, nor can it be destroyed. It's just redistributed. Now,
recycled.
What their mission is to look for the ancestor dust and to reanimate it, or to keep it within a bloodline or timeline, so that they can pass on the baton of control.
Have you been involved in this when you're in Russia?
Well, I personally, I think we all have. Probably unknowingly. It's just a case of whether you know you're participating or you don't know. But everybody participates in it. I would say that it's largely done unknowingly, which is actually more dangerous.
Can you give us some? I mean, are you talking about like the kind of energy harvesting rituals that we've touched on before, but with regards to a different intent? You know, projecting them to a cosmic body. Is that the kind of thing you're talking about?
Yeah, or they could be projected to a certain planetary body or a particular dimension. There's so many ways that this can be done.
We know where Elon Musk is exporting all the louche he's harvesting. He's going straight to the Mars colony. He's got a big louche tank on Mars. He's storing it all up.
Well, the perversion that has taken place is that you've got groups of these people with this ideology that kind of put themselves above the cosmos. They want to be the masters of the cosmos, not a participant. And this is where the perversion starts to take place, and it will manifest in many different ways. And like I say, there's many factions that are operating right now, and I would say, and without saying any names, certain world leaders have this ideology where they believe that they're working to manage the cosmos. So they actually
On behalf of
believe,
the big farmers, the cosmic farmers.
no, I would say the leaders of certain countries, the leaders of certain ideologies, they have the belief that they are working on behalf of this cosmic work. It's a family business.
Is this like the great work that the Freemasons and the other occult secret societies are involved in? Or is this something different?
I would say it's probably higher than that. What I'm alluding towards.
Okay.
But I would say the world leaders on the stage right now, one in particular, that is his ideology. And that is what he's working towards.
Okay.
It's a cosmic war as far as they're concerned. It's not about nations, it's not about borders, it's not about things like that. It's far greater.
Could be like the war between Saturn and Mars, for instance. Just say.
Yeah. And they're looking to basically to control, to explore and find the ancestor dust, and ultimately with the resurrection of all of the dead. Now, this links to Christianity.
Yeah, right. I was just thinking that.
Yeah. So, for the most part, all Christians are participating in this because it's all about the resurrection of the dead.
Shit.
Now, the resurrection of the dead, in religious terms, is actually fundamentally it's a metaphysical version of what science is trying to do.
Can I ask? Could this be linked in with the same sort of concept as what the high level Luciferian families have apparently said in these interviews about what their role on the earth is? That they're this idea of the harvest, which I keep talking about. Because if you're talking about feeding cosmic bodies, and is this the same sort of concept?
Yeah, it will be their desire to reanimate, to pass on. Remember I said about passing on the baton? Because potentially there are crimes committed, and they have to make sure that they don't, or they have to make sure that they evade prosecution on a cosmic scale. So it's almost kind of like they back themselves into a position where they have to continue the crimes, and almost deny that it's a crime in order to not be prosecuted. And this is why you'll see, as soon as one person gets disposed of, another person will appear, and they'll just continue the agenda. And others will go unprosecuted for the most part. But then you've got the literalists of this ideology. It's the same ideology. It's just that you've got some that are more metaphysical, some that are religious, and then you've got some that are literal. So there'll be the science. That'll be the branch of the science where they want to be able to defy death. But they're not interested in character. They're not interested in the development of higher being bodies or any natural, going in accordance with natural law or universal or cosmic law. In fact, they want to do quite the opposite. They want to be God.
On the physical plane.
Yeah. So this kind of
sort of being like the kid that's always kept back in a class until he's a fully grown adult around a load of toddlers, to have that level of superiority, in my opinion, is what would be the aim of doing something like that.
Yeah, and what we're witnessing right now is the manifestation of this ideology. It's going under the guise of some kind of war, but there's actually, in their opinion, there's far more at stake. Think about it, right? What would it take? I'll ask you a question directly. What would it take for you to wake up in the morning and decide that you want to go to war and kill people?
Well,
would it be? Do you think it'd be a natural thought that you would have?
Unless some soldiers rocked up at my house and killed my family, I can't see myself, knowing what I know, getting pulled into some sort of nationalistic war. Unless there were literally people rocking up on the beach near my house and machine gunning people down.
Yeah. Now you got to ask the question. These leaders, right, throughout history, that have taken civilizations, nations, so on and so forth, into war, and the consequences that they potentially face. What would it take to inspire you to do that? You'd have to be part of this ideology.
Yeah.
Think about it. It's not
You've talked about feeding the earth before, haven't you?
Yeah.
With wars.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's some kind of ritual, it's some kind of blood sacrifice.
So let me just zoom in because or zoom out. I don't know which way you're going, but I just want to let me just conceptualize it. Are you talking about something, this ideology, that could be running throughout the dark occultist KM mafia bloodlines that we've talked about, but it's also an ideology, or it's a different sect of it that runs through some light occultists that are working in smaller groups in secret? This is an ideology which has many different interpretations, many different deities that they could be worshipping or feeding, or energies, should we say? Am I getting this right?
Well, I'd say it's more to do with, say, you've got the corruption, the perversion of the cosmic ray of creation, and then you've got those who are working towards bringing back into some kind of natural law, natural order of the reciprocation of the food diagram or the food cycle. So the light occultists will be aimed, excuse me, in that direction. The dark occultists, remember, the dark occultists and Satanists are generally service to self. So
and as I understand, it has to be absolute service to self to complete their agenda. Something like 95% service to self.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, right. I'm going to move on to the next stage, and so it's going to be a little bit different, but it'll all tie back in.
Okay.
I'm going to talk about and ask the question of what is freedom, because we hear this word used and thrown around a lot, especially now, and I generally believe that most people don't know what it actually means, and to be part of the so-called freedom movement, they possibly really don't understand what it means. So I've got a few questions. So the first one is, what is freedom? So what is freedom? Like, what does it mean? Should I be free to do what I want? So if, for instance, if I want to walk around naked, should I be free to do that? So the freedom movement, they want freedom, so I can walk around naked. Somebody can walk around the park jerking off. They're free to do that. Yeah, freedom movement. We're all free.
These are very good questions. Yeah.
So somebody could be free to marry a 6-year-old.
Free to marry their sister.
Yep. Free to kill.
Free to kill their married 6-year-old sister.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Let's see how dark we can get. Free to keep their grandmother in the cupboard 20 years after she dies and then eat her. That's freedom, yeah?
That's absolute freedom.
Yeah, you want freedom? I mean, in some ways, think about it, right? That's Satanism.
Gosh. Absolute freedom is Satanism. Now we're talking about Crowleyism, do as thou wilt. You can do whatever you want. You can do whatever you want.
So
that's absolute freedom, but there are consequences.
So all these people that are in the freedom movement, is that what they want to see manifest? And if they don't, then that's not freedom. It's relative freedom. Think about it.
Yeah, because absolute freedom is do as thou wilt. Relative freedom, what we talk about in a Western democratic society, is do as to others as you would have done unto yourself. That's what Jesus said, because we live in a Judeo-Christian society, right? Yeah. And common law is don't murder, steal, rape, or that's about it, isn't it?
Yeah. Now,
or harm.
I'll move on to the other questions. So the first one is, what is freedom? Second question is, what would be the problem to freedom? Potentially it would be, actually this is another question. Are people reasonable?
Most people.
Are they?
Well, some people are reasonable, at least.
Can they be? Could most people be trusted with absolute freedom?
No. Not at the moment.
Right. Okay. So yeah. So now we're getting somewhere. Right. Next question: do people actually need freedom?
Well, in the last 2 years, we've seen that some people don't even want it. They would clearly choose to not have it.
Yeah, and that's my next question. And do people actually want freedom?
Not everyone.
No. Okay, so we've established that freedom is not cracked up to what it kind of sounds. It sounds good, but
It's more complicated than it sounds. Much more complicated.
yeah. Right. So then this brings us to who controls freedom or relative freedom. It's the people in power that make the laws, make the rules, regulations, restrictions. Yeah.
And people that write the dictionary, that write the definition of what freedom is in the first place. That's another establishment.
Yeah. And this takes us right back to what I was alluding towards with regards to those in control actually believe they're doing the greater good for humanity, because they see themselves as the managers, the controllers
Shepherds.
of freedoms. Now, I'm pretty sure if you sat down with these characters, that they would be totally convinced that they're doing service to humanity. That they're
Yeah, that's the thing.
a greater good for life. Now, in some ways, they potentially are, because if let's say, for instance, right, I'm going to count down from three, and we're going to have absolute freedom. So 3, 2, 1. Right, freedom for all. You can do anything you want. Anybody can do anything you want, anything they want, and you can't say anything about it. You can't complain. You can't report it. You can't take offense.
Gosh.
How long will that last?
It's like the purge, isn't it?
Yeah, it probably, I don't know, not even 24 hours. People would be begging for control, begging for order, begging for management, begging for restrictions.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so you can see kind of freedom is not quite what we think it might be. And this is why I always don't understand like the freedom movement. Because
Freedom
really what they're talking about is relative freedom. So they want their rights to be free, but any rights that they particularly don't like or resonate with, they would want them outlawed. And possibly rightfully so. I mean, do you want to walk through the park with your children while people are jerking off? Not really.
Or playing golf, or shooting their air rifle.
Yeah.
Wait a minute, I can do whatever I want for free. Why can't I play golf in the park and shoot my air rifle?
Yeah.
And the kids around.
Yeah, exactly. So we need to kind of reconsider these words, these concepts. We always talk about freedom, and we're fighting for freedom, freedom fighters, and all this stuff. Yeah. But do we really want it? Now, real freedom is the ability to express the three forces, which are fundamental. They're the makeup of this this realm. So you got the good, the bad, and the neutral. So if you want real freedom, then you have to accept that there's people that want to be good, and there's people that want to be bad, and there's people that are indifferent, or they want to balance the two. You've heard me say before, I call it threedom. I've not heard that term said anywhere else. So.
No, that's definitely a Master Leeism. Threedom.
And that brings us to the question of polarity. So, unfortunately, whether you like it or not, this realm has been designed. It functions under the law of polarity. So you've got opposites. You've got opposing forces, ideas, concepts, opinions. You've got good, bad, black, white, light, dark, day, night, opposites. Okay, so that poses a fundamental problem to freedom, or total freedom, absolute freedom. So it has to be managed. Now, who is going to manage it?
Well, here's a conundrum.
Yeah, and as you said about the shepherd, so you've got the sheep and the shepherd. So this is why we have, because a lot of people kind of don't understand, well, why do we have leaders? Why do we have politicians? Why do we have government? governance and all this type of thing. Well, it's to manage the polarity.
Well, we employ them to protect our freedom, don't we?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
here's the conundrum: who are the people the only ones that can curtail your freedom? Well, it's the government, and they're the
Yeah.
ones that we've employed to protect our freedom.
Yeah.
This is a problem.
For the most part, I believe people aren't responsible enough. And I know this is kind of like self-fulfilling prophecy, because possibly the reason why they're not responsible enough is because they've never had the chance to actually develop the ability to manage their own freedom.
If you never leave the play school, you're never going to grow up.
Yeah, and potentially you could say, right, let's drop all laws, all regulations, all restrictions. Everybody's free to do anything they want. It may take 1,000 years for people to figure out that doing certain things aren't useful. Maybe, I don't know. And I think that's what we're always on the edge on, or the edge of. That we kind of fight restrictions, but in reality, let's be honest, restrictions are kind of needed in one way or another.
Well, the current state that humanity is in this ascending end of the Kali Yuga, or whatever this period of the cycle is, the state that we're in now, you definitely need there to be some governance, because it's blatantly obvious that most people don't have the capabilities to govern themselves.
No,
and that's going to be unpopular, what I just said there.
Yeah, yeah. But we witness it every day. I mean, we're literally witnessing the manifestation of people giving up their capability to critically think, or even think.
As much as I'd love to live in a society where there's no governance, where I could be totally independent from any type of Big Brother society and be totally, self-sustaining, I would love that. But I know for a fact that it would create a real problem, because you'd have a whole load of people that can't look after themselves, and they would be going around taking from people that can. And then you have to start employing people to protect the freedom. So we've got the same problem again.
Yeah, so here's the conundrum. So if you want total freedom, you have to allow for those that want laws and restrictions. It kind of doesn't make sense. It's a conundrum.
Yeah, because here's the other problem. If you want total freedom, then someone else has complete freedom to curtail your freedom.
Yeah.
So you actually, in a way, do you need a law to protect freedom? Can freedom exist when you have other people that could quite easily curtail it?
Yeah.
It's a law to protect us.
Yeah, and I think this brings us back to natural law, universal law, cosmic law, where there are certain laws in place that are designed to bring balance. Because I think at the end of the day, it's all about balance and the balancing of the three forces. That's why you hear me talk a lot, if not all the time, about the balancing of forces and how it's very important to have an understanding of this concept, and that you can't just go in one direction or another. Maybe in other dimensions, other realms, it's under a different law. So those things are not a problem. But in this current realm, this paradigm that we find ourselves in, whether you like it or not, it's a reality. Right, so let me move on. So this brings us down to the me versus the we. And I spoke about this earlier about the concepts, and the problem that you're seeing right now is that you've got two ideologies that are going head to head. You've got the me ideology. I don't need to say who that is. And then you've got the we, which would be the collective. Yeah. The cultural collective versus it's all about me. It's all about me. It's what I want. You got two ideologies literally at war, like on the border of the terrain between me and we. Albeit it's ideas. It could be sort of more literal in one region to another. It's on a spectrum. But in essence, you've got the me versus the we. They're the two ideologies that are at war. Now, the problem is they're not factoring in the reconciling force, the balancing of the me and the we. Because you can't have a we without the me. You can't have a we without the me.
Oh, God, yeah, okay.
Yeah, they have to be harmonized, and that is the reconciling force. That is what it means to be reasonable. The reason of the absolute, the reason of the one.
Always comes back to the triad. To raise
Yep.
yourself from the 2 points of polarity, there must be the third point of perception, of understanding, of
Yeah,
stance.
and then that brings us back again to the esoteric, the exoteric. For those that probably may not understand what I'm talking about, the esoteric generally means the inner, the exoteric means the outer, and then you've got the third one, which is the mesoteric. The mesoteric is the connection between the esoteric and the exoteric, and they don't actually exist completely separate. There is a middle path that connects or unites. Now, this can be seen in many different geometric shapes, like the triangle, the pyramid, the triad. It can also be seen in something like the viscous Pisces. For those who don't know what it is, it's basically two circles that overlap, and that basically creates a triad. So you've got the space on the left, space on the right, and then the space where they both overlap. Yeah. So that's a very popular geometric shape or symbol to display this concept of the three forces. And I tend to use that with my own functioning. So I have my own circle, and then I see other as another circle. And then when I interact or relate to the outer, there's an overlap. And it's my kind of task as a responsible human to be reasonable within that space. Now, if you don't have reason within that third space, then you have war, conflict. And it generally requires two people to be responsible and reasonable. And that's why you have negotiations. That's the true essence of agreements, or I wouldn't say contracts, because that basically means one's reasonable, one's not. And you have to have a contract to make anything work. It's kind of a very kind of low frequency relationship. And the mere fact that you need a contract, that would suggest that you're dealing with unreasonable people or entities. Yeah. Because it could and should be done on a handshake if two people were honorable and reasonable. In fact, it'll just be the nod. You wouldn't even need a handshake. Yeah. So when you got one circle and a second circle resonating, vibrating, and then you've got the overlap, the interaction, the relationship between two separate entities or polar opposites even, what we're looking for is the harmonization of the two entities relating. That will give you the struggle, that will give you the friction, that will give you the ability to be an adult, to be a human being, not just a low-level human or meat suit.
Moonsack.
Yeah. Right. So that creates like a triad. You've got self, other, and you've got relationship between the two, the interaction between the two. Now, the dark occultists, they're the ones that will corrupt this phenomenon. So they always put themselves in a position of dominance in one way or another and control. So they will never be interested in any type of reasonable interaction or relationship that is balanced. You'll always see the manifestation. It will always manifest as control, where they don't really go with as below so above. They want to rain down dominance, as above so below. Now, you often hear the term as without so within, as within so without, and that's also the interplay of the two. So as an example, you could be a person that is totally controlled and dominated by external influences, and you, for the most part, don't control any aspect of your reality. Equally, you could be in total dominance of your reality, and you become the cause and you make the effect. So therefore you can design and be the architect of your known reality and the reality of others.
Rise above.
Yeah. And then I mean, ideally you want the balance between two reasonable bodies that can both reconcile. I mean, that's what reconciliation means. It's the reconciliation of two opposing anything, any subject. Reasonable adults can find reconciliation between two opposing forces, which gives you the triad, and that's what we're looking for, and that's what light occultists are seeking, is the balancing of the forces, the harmonization, the peace between two pieces, broken fragments of the whole. Because let's face it, we at the end of the day we are all one. We do all come from the absolute. We are just kind of fragments of the shattered whole. And those who are light occultists, or those on that spectrum, are looking to reconnect, reunite, re-embody, reconcile, and find and make peace, not war.
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to sort of talk about like how is this corrupted? Okay, so how do the dark occultists corrupt this phenomenon within this realm? Okay, right. There's a mechanism, and I'm going to go quite deep now. So,
All right, strap yourselves in.
if at any point I'm not making sense, just pull me up.
No, totally. I'm just all ears tonight. If I'm going quiet, it's not because I don't understand. I'm just all ears.
Okay, and if you want to interject, feel free.
Okay.
You can jump in. Yeah. Right. So, how are the dark occultists able to corrupt the phenomena that I've just spoken about? The balancing of the forces, the interaction, the overlap of separation. Well, there's a mechanism, and it's called identification. Now, this is why they're obsessed with ID. Okay, now,
Yes.
right, so you've got the digital ID. What that is a representation of and a manifestation of is the mechanism known as identification. It will make a lot more sense in a few moments. Right, so this is kind of an esoteric saying. For the identified, the nearest tree represents the whole forest. Okay, so for the identified, so that's a human that is identified or trapped or stuck in the mechanism of identification, the nearest tree represents the whole forest. So there's other ways of saying that, sort of more open ways of saying that, not being able to see the wood from the trees and vice versa. Yeah.
Sure.
So, yeah. So the mechanism of identification is actually the most terrible foe to humanity. Okay. And I will explain what I mean by my definition of identification. Now, it's the most terrible foe to humanity, and it's used for the deception by the dark occultists. Right, and what this basically means is make people focus on one thing at a time. It is anti-syncretism.
Yeah.
And it enables those without birth certificates. And you've heard me say this before.
Yeah, it's great.
So this is kind of like the real dark occultists.
The real bloodline dark occultists, yeah.
Yeah. This enables those without birth certificates to compartmentalize reality, which leads to deception. Or we could say magic or sleight of hand. Now,
sorcery.
Yeah. How does a magician perform a trick? It's through the mechanism of identification. They get you to focus on one thing, sleight of hand, while something else is taking place. Yeah. So as an example, as a representation of a manifestation in this dimension, this realm right now, we're all focused on war. What we should really be looking at is what else is taking place while everybody's identified with war.
Yeah.
And these dark sorcerers, dark magicians, this is their trick, and this is what they're doing right now. And it's very easy for them to do. So let's face it, right? We spent 2 years with identification of health. Now they've inverted health. and everybody's identified with war. I'm even seeing people now saying, yeah, kill the Russians, kill the Ukrainians. So we've gone from people so scared of death that they walk around in a mask, stay at home, have go to Britney Spears and listen to Britney Spears with headphones on day and night. They've gone from that to now they're happy for people to kill each other.
Now going to the Megadeth concert.
Yeah, that could be the new word.
There's a meme there.
Yeah, so that demonstrates the mechanism of identification and the power of identification. So it's very easy to get people who don't have any higher being bodies, any inner functioning, any inner protection, to focus on anything they want as magicians, as sorcerers, using sleight of hand. So when everybody's identified with with the hand that's presented, it's the other hand that's doing the trick, not the magic. There's different kind of ways of describing magic. I would say what we're talking about now is the perception of magic. So they're not actually performing magic, they're making you believe there's magic, when in actual fact it's just a trick, sleight of hand. And there is a big connection between the dark occultists, sorcery, magic, sleight of hand, deception. In fact, for the most part, that's what it's all about.
Yeah, I would agree.
Inversion. Okay, so they would believe that clever gets them so far, but it's trickery that gets them in. Okay, so you can be clever to a certain point, but to get in, whether it's in a nightclub, whether it's into somebody's bank account, or whether it's into your psyche, whether it's into your soul, whether it's into your essence, it's trickery that will get you in. And it's that trickery that is breaking of cosmic law, natural law.
Yes, it's the subversion of our free will as a result of the trickery.
Yeah. Now, sometimes people ask me, why did I use the term or name inner guardians? Well, this describes exactly what I'm talking about right now. We need to be constantly on guard to the inner trickery or the trickery that gets them into your psyche, into your inner functioning, into your mind, into your emotions, and ultimately into your physical actions. So that's why I called it inner guardians. It was purely intentional, and it has a very profound meaning.
For sure.
So let me just go a little bit more into identification. And I will be putting pauses in. I will be speaking slowly at some points, because this type of knowledge is not kind of given out freely or easily. A lot of people will have to go through a lot of work, a lot of initiations and stuff like that to get this kind of information, data, so on and so forth. Okay, so we need to pay attention. Okay, and this is one way that nothing's for free. Okay, so we have to be paying attention. We have to pay attention to our identification, or when we're being identified. We need to be merciless on ourselves in spotting when we're becoming identified with anything, by using the mechanisms of self-observation. And we need to be on guard, literally 24/7. Even in our dream world, we can become identified. Now, what I'm about to say now will make a lot of sense. Okay, so people often mistake identification, and quite for the most part, we're taught this through our education system. So people mistake identification and see it as a virtue. They confuse it with enthusiasm, passion, spontaneity, etc., or similar. So we're always taught to be kind of enthusiastic and passionate about any object, or sorry, subject. Okay, it's seen as a virtue to be obsessed. No, sorry, that's the wrong term. To be identified with something, to be an expert in something. Yeah. So
Anti-syncretism.
yeah, it's anti-syncretism. Okay. So they have convinced that the only state, that the state of identification can produce good work. So what they do is, through the education system and through societal manipulation, is to convince you that it's only through identification to subjects that you can that a human can produce good work, and that could be works of art, that could be job occupations, and so on and so forth. So it's very normal to be identified. Okay, but remember, it's the greatest foe to humanity. So the very thing that we're taught to be the best thing is actually our greatest enemy.
What do you want to be when you grow up? What do you want to be?
Yeah.
It's not what do you want to do. What do you want to be when you grow up? What do you do?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm a human being.
Yeah.
I want to be a human being.
Yeah. And to not know what you want is always frowned upon. You know, I'm not saying that it's good to walk around this realm not knowing what you're doing. Quite the opposite. What I'm trying to expose is a function called identification, and identification politics even, and the current manifestation of society, where it's all about being identified, having an ID. You know, what is your name? What is your number? What is your star sign? What is this? What is that? You, it would be very difficult now to walk into a job interview and not tell them what your name is, not to say what your ethnicity is, what your religion is, and so on and so forth. They want to know everything. They want you to identify. They create box after box after box, just like Russian dolls. The more identified that you can be, then the more controlled that you can be. Now, nothing sensible will ever come from the state or the pure state of identification. Okay? Nothing sensible. And what are we seeing happening right now? Are we seeing anything sensible?
No, because we're going into higher levels of identification. This is what all the identity politics is. I truly think it's been a warm-up to introduce the digital ID. Everyone's thinking about identity. When I did media studies degree at university, I had a whole thing, identity. When the idea of identity was formed in the 1800s, and it was like, yeah, a lot of dodgy ideas were formed in the 1800s. Funny that, isn't it? All around 1850. Yeah, and now we're rushing towards. Well, we've passed 2020 with ID 2020. That the Soviet Union, whatever work we're talking about here, is constantly trying to enforce higher levels of identification, QR identification, digital identification, biometric digital identification. Literally, having ID put into your body, into your meat suit, having digital ID. So
yeah. Now, at the moment, if you're a natural human, the function of identification is just a function, and you can use it or not use it. If they implant identification into your biotech or natural body, then that's it. It's game over.
yeah, that's the end.
Yeah, it's literally that's the ultimate form of control. Now, identification is the dark occult magician's favorite tool, as it gives the impression of choice. Okay, and what I mean by that is it makes you believe that you're making choices. Okay, but all they're doing is they're controlling the subject matter upon which you decide upon. AKA, they control both sides.
Providing choice A or choice B is not freedom. Freedom is a plethora of choices, a spectrum of choices. It's not like two binaries handed to you.
Yeah. So the illusion of choice or relative choice is not choice at all, because all they're doing is presenting two things to be identified with. And what are you seeing right now? I'm pro-Ukraine. I'm pro-Russian. Oh, I'm pro Britney Spears. I'm anti Britney Spears.
Anthony Britney Spears.
I'm I'm far right. I'm far left. Right. If anything, there's less balance in the world. There's more division. I would say since the 23rd of February, there's way more division in the world. Think about it.
Absolutely.
Think of the division that's been injected into our reality.
Mate, there were articles, big lengthy articles being written about the huge polarization of mankind back in like 2016, 17, 18. And it was getting worse and worse. And that was before the Soviet Union even happened. And Britney and Britney Spears came on the scene. And, you know, and now we have the whole World War 33 divide as well. So it's like, you know, how many more times can we be divided? On how many more spectrums?
Yeah, and this is always a marker to the dark occultist activity because it breeds division. There's always that 50-50 split. Doesn't matter if it's Brexit, voting, religion, whatever. There's always that kind of 50-50 split, which is a natural phenomena because of polarity, but they're using this function and mechanism for control.
Yeah.
Now,
so the hijacking the power of a natural function of our realm is what you're saying, because we live in a 3D realm. The third point being perception, the other 2 points being this polarity we keep talking about, this duality, the black and white checkerboards. This is something that's built into the realm, but you're saying they're hijacking the energy of it and reappropriating it for trickery, for control, and for deception.
Exactly. Right. Now, and they've done very well for a very long time.
Yeah, they've perfected it.
To the point where I don't know if anybody's actually talking about these subjects that we're discussing right now.
Not at this level of understanding. Not really putting it out like this. You know, we can talk about the Hegelian dialect and the concepts, but to actually try and present something that might move towards offering another option, this third option of removal, of rising above. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So the state of identification, right? What it does, it reduces you to become a thing. Okay, it's anti-human, right? You become a thing. You become a piece of meat.
The meat suit.
The meat suit, yeah. Because they always get you to identify with something that's external, an external event, an external manifestation,
an external ideology.
Yeah, so they're always getting you to identify outward without any consideration as to what's taking place to your inner or your higher being bodies. So it slows down, it prevents the development of the higher being bodies, because the only way to do that is to go inward, to look at the inner terrain, to look at actually what have you got, what potential have you got in terms of the inward or the inner world. I always say the only way out of this is to go in. It's the only escape route. It's the only way. It's your only chance. Because if
that's
you
the
keep
only way
going
out of the crater.
Yeah, because going outward, all that you'll be presented with is one identification after another.
Yep.
Now, there's an exercise, right? An esoteric exercise, and I'll explain it. Most people in esoteric groups would have done this, and some people would do this naturally. So, as an example, you could sit in a shop, theatre, cafe, restaurant, anywhere where there's people, and simply sit there and observe and listen to the conversations that people have and what they talk about. Because generally speaking, they'll talk as if they know, and they'll revel in all kinds of identifications about any subject of which they know absolutely nothing about.
Yeah.
Now, what are we seeing on Facebook or social media? We're seeing an abundance of people talking about, like, I don't know, Russian politics, Ukrainian politics. They don't know anything about it. They've done no research, and yet they'll sit there, and I get it all the time. I get people on, say, social media or Facebook, trying to tell me about Russia. And they've never been to Russia. They don't know anything about Russia. All they know is sound bites or cliches that they've seen on the media. And media is the main mechanism to put out the objects or subjects of identification. So I've had so many debates with people that know absolutely nothing about the occult. They know nothing about esoteric knowledge, about martial arts. I could have an argument with somebody about martial arts and they've never done a day of martial arts, and they'd be happy to do that. Now that is the revelation of and the power of identification. So you got people basically identified to such a point where we say out of the empty into the void, and they have convinced themselves that they know something. They will never even doubt. It's very hard to get people to doubt that they might not know something about any given subject. And you see this play out in these debates online.
Yeah.
So I don't really need to. I'm not actually. I haven't got to convince anybody of what I'm saying. You can witness it on a daily basis. And this being the greatest apocalypse ever, it's all being revealed. The veil's being lifted to these functions, to the way that the dark occultists are manipulating humanity.
I remember you said it last year. You said that at the end of 2021, you said next year, 2022, will be the year where you see, like, what should we say, proper revelation of the method. That the occult will de-occult itself. It will come to the forefront, and it will be put there for all of us to see. And this is what we're going to be talking about with Terror Slim when he comes on next week, because this year, like, we're seeing literally sacrifices and rituals happening before our eyes in the mainstream media, and there are many people that are starting to become aware of it. Many people. And now when you talk about it, there's plenty of people to talk to about it.
Yeah.
Whereas before 2020, you started talking about a potential ritual or a sacrifice that had been a mainstream media event, you get shot down in flames for being a proper nutcase, not just tinfoil hat, for being like a religious nutcase or something like that. Even worse. Now, plenty of people want to talk about all the numbers, so it's certainly being revealed. That's for sure.
Yeah. And going back to identification and what it actually means and how to spot it. So something that's very, very simple. If you catch yourself or find yourself saying, "I always," so it's often used. I always catch the bus. I always whatever. Yeah, that is a trick because it's not true. It's
a lie.
Well, it's part of the function of manifestation. So their objective is to get people to believe that they always do this, that, or the other. It's an absolute, and that creates division, because if you always do something, how can you ever find reconciliation with something that isn't
or in the collective? Everyone always does that. Everyone has always done that.
Yeah,
that's the way. Yeah, it's the same thing.
It's an extension.
Yeah.
Okay, so identification is slavery of the worst kind. It's self-slavery without a master. Okay, and because of that, any Tom, Dick, or Harry can be your master. And this is how the dark occultists have reduced the majority of the population or humanity into this position.
Master the slave.
Yeah, and it's self-mastery basically means that you for a start understand identification, and that you have the ability to self-govern for the right reasons. Okay, but we need freedom from identification, and how do we get freedom from identification? It's actually very difficult, because we're living in a realm that is purely built upon identification. When you start to live a life where you don't identify, life can become very tricky, very bumpy, very awkward. Like I say, we're always constantly asked, and I don't know if you've ever been in a social setting where people feel very uneasy if For instance, they don't know your name, they don't know your occupation, they don't know who your parents are, they don't know what country you're from, where you was born, what town where you live, what car you drive. They feel
Yeah,
very uncomfortable.
yeah. I've always found that weird because sometimes people have perceived me as rude before because I haven't always been hot on. I can talk to someone for quite a long time without introducing myself or asking what their name is and really connect with them. And I don't have a problem doing that. Whether I'm slightly autistic or not, I don't know. But some people perceive that as rude because they don't feel comfortable being in someone's presence unless a proper introduction has been done. Hey, I can completely jam with someone, and 5 or 6 hours later, I can realise I haven't even asked their name.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I've always found, that kind of attitude, kind of, I don't know, a need for identification before you can let barriers down is what you're talking about, basically.
Yeah, yeah. So what that reveals is the power and how society is based on how you identify. So as an example, you could meet a stranger sat in a room or whatever, business, whatever, yeah. And let's say hypothetically, or let's have a job interview scenario, right? So you're going for a job interview, and obviously they know information about you. You sent your CV and whatnot, and then all of a sudden you say, "Yeah, I support Nottingham Forest football team," and the person that is interviewing you also supports Nottingham Forest. And then you start chatting about the results from last week and blah 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 blah. There's a high chance you'll probably get the job.
Of course.
And that is an identification. So you kind of connect, and because the education is based on try to connect with those that you identify with. That is like the representation. That is how you can see it. That's confirmation of the power of identification. Now, identification is on many levels. I've actually got, there's many, but I've got 6 main ones that people identify with. Okay, so, and this is a very important one. So humans are really identified with how other people think of them. Think about that. Think how important it is, and how identified people get with how other people perceive them, how people see them, how people view them, how people treat them. It's very important to people. We're taught that it's, you could be crushed because you think somebody doesn't like you.
You could.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. No, I'm not making a joke about it. I before I sort of broke free the chains of that, I know how powerful it is to worry about what other people think of you.
Right. And society pushes that, right?
Yeah.
The dark occultists push that. And there's a reason why they push that, right? They want people to be so concerned, and they want people to believe that others don't value them enough. And what that becomes, or what that conjures up or manifests, is a type of suspicion and doubt. And it makes you lose an enormous amount of mental, psychic, physical energy. So just in that act alone of thinking that people think bad of you because you're identified, or you're stuck in the function of identification, that can make you lose so much energy, mentally, psychically, emotionally, and physically. And where is that energy going? What is it feeding? And it serves many purposes. So that creates division, because you end up becoming suspicious. Basically, some type of low self-esteem. You don't believe in yourself. And it's ironic because they tell us that society is based on making you feel good, making you believe in yourself. You can be great one day and all this stuff. When in actual fact, the way society is based, because of the dark occultism in it, or Satanism, people are often left feeling very filled with doubt, hesitation, fear, suspicion. So as an example, you're in the job interview. The moment you say you support Nottingham Forest, and the person that's interviewing you supports Nottingham Forest, then it kind of it drops. The suspicion, the fear drops, just for a short time, because the problem is a division will always find another identification to manifest. you could end up arguing that it's the wrong manager for that team. You could end up having a punch up over it. Some people do. That's the degree of identification.
Yeah,
Do
and
you
on the
realise
flip side, you could decide to not employ someone that was really good for the job because you supported a different football team because you couldn't identify with them. You had the disassociation from them. And there's plenty of people that are like that.
Now, anybody that is out there listening to this or that will listen to this that may say, Inner Guardian's talking a load of tosh, okay? You do realise there's people in prison right now serving a life sentence for killing somebody because they supported a different football team. Let that sink in. There's people that are in jail right now for killing somebody because they had a different religion. Think about it. That's the power of identification.
Wow. Gosh.
Okay, so the next type of identification. So this happens on a societal level. And this is kind of like, this is a very kind of complex and very, very deep one. I'll try and sort of break it down. So identification on a societal level will basically mean that it's kind of a us versus them type of thing. And it could be anything. It could be soccer, it could be religion, it could be postcode. There's all kinds of things that this will manifest. And yeah, I'll move on to the next one quickly because I'm conscious of the time. Okay. So this is a very important one. Injustice. So people will often get identified with injustice. And it's one of the best ways to control people.
So yeah, we've got some really good examples in the last few years with toxic masculinity, sexism, racism, people being told to identify with gender inequality or perceived historic persecution, identify with that, identify with a cultural bad memory, you know.
Right. Yeah, and I'm going to say something right now that is will actually make a lot of sense of the madness that we are experiencing. So identification with injustice. So the dark occultists will actually inject injustice deliberately. And this explains why they do all this crazy shit that doesn't make any sense. And they contradict themselves. And they know it. And they know they're doing it. Well, actually, some of the agents probably don't know exactly what they're doing. So this is why they kind of make these blunders, mistakes, miscalculations, because they want you to feel injustice so you can become identified with it. Look what's taken place over the last 2 years.
Imagine all the people that are going to identify with the injustice of being coerced into attending a Britney Spears concert and then potentially having myocarditis or God knows what else.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what? People actually love injustice. And I'll tell you why they love injustice.
Gives them something to identify with.
Well, yeah, and to non-identify with injustice would mean that you would have to reconcile yourself to it. So it's taken away your capability of reconciliation. It's a bit of you've got to get your head around it. Okay, so people often resonate and they gravitate towards identifying with injustice. Right.
I've got a good example of this. This is the kind of thing that the sorcery that's built into the term Black Lives Matter. Because if you were to go up against someone, if you would disagree with the Black Lives Matter campaign or whatever, or George Soros or whatever, and you went up against someone, the first thing they're going to say is, "Oh, do Black lives not matter to you?"
Yeah.
So it's going to try and insinuate that you cannot identify with the injustice.
Yep.
And if you don't say Black Lives Matter, then that must mean you don't think they matter. So it's
Yeah.
a very loaded thing. And even I always thought the whole thing of having to say it would indicate that you already thought like Black lives didn't matter in the first place. Oh, I've got to proclaim that they do. What, are you trying to insinuate that you actually think a whole race of people don't matter? You better say it, because if you don't say it, you probably do think that. I always saw that sorcery built into it from the first day I saw it on a poster, so I can understand exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Identify with this injustice, or we'll paint you as a heartless pig.
Yeah, yeah. So if you're somebody that doesn't identify with certain subjects, you will be branded exactly as you just said. And
Yeah.
when they inject stuff like in the media, like as an example, taking the knee,
Yeah.
that
There you
is
go. Perfect.
that's a perfect example of the sorcery that they're using to get people to identify with injustice and then to divide themselves from those that
Mate.
ignore it.
Gosh.
I've never heard this said before about current events. I've never heard this said before. A deliberate attempt to make people identify with injustice.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I did say that I'm going to make sense of the madness. This one's a bit more trivial, but actually it's very deep-rooted, and we're all guilty of it. Okay, so the identification with nature. And what that means is, if we take the weather, for example. So when it rains, people will often become identified to the degree that they actually believe that God has made it rain for them because God hates them or God wants to mess up their day or whatever. When in actual fact, the realm, it's rained and it's totally indifferent to you and whatever your pursuit is. But people will become very identified. And what's the first thing people talk about? The weather.
Yeah.
And we have weather forecasts, and people are socially addicted to the weather. It's not through any real need or necessity. It's often kind of loose talk, or oh, it's a nice day today, or people can commit suicide because the sun didn't come out. That could be enough of an identification to push them over the edge, as an example. Or they believe that the clouds follow them around, and it rained on an important day. It's because the realm hates you. But you don't factor in that the farmer next door was happy that it rained. Think about it.
Yeah.
The realm is indifferent. When somebody identifies with it, it's that function where the attention and the energy. Think of how much energy can be harvested from somebody that's upset because it rained on their birthday or their wedding or whatever. Yeah, any important event. It can be devastating for some people. Or a soccer match can't go ahead because of the weather. So that's another form of energy harvesting through the mechanism of identification. I'm conscious of the time, so I'll move on. So another one is pleasure and pain, the polarity of pleasure and pain. So people become very identified with it. So they have a massive aversion to pain and a massive attraction to pleasure. And they often become identified with that, as in that is their driving force, that they can only identify with one or the other for the most part. And then the last one, and this leads us into kind of the inner and the outer. So number 6, thinking that you do not consider others enough. So quite often people become identified because they don't think that they care about other people enough, which is kind of like a weird inverted selfishness. So it actually comes across as a virtue. So somebody will tell themselves that they're being virtuous because they didn't do enough. That's literally a thing.
Virtue signaling to themselves.
Yeah.
So what do they call it? Self-virtuous flagellation.
Yeah. So people, I mean, to be honest, we've all kind of participated in all of these 6 or one or the other or whatever. Some participate in one more than the other, but we've all experienced this because this is how we've been educated to be. So quite often mothers will feel bad because they feel like they didn't do enough for their child or children. Fathers will feel the same. Husbands will feel they didn't do enough for their wife, and the wife will vice versa. In fact, society is based on it. In the workplace, it's quite often that you'll be led to believe that you didn't do enough, and people will happily embrace that they didn't do enough, because they remember, people can only function in terms of identification because that's how they've been educated, convinced, indoctrinated to be. Because in childhood and through the schooling education system, like I said earlier on, that identification is seen as a virtue, when it's the greatest tool of the dark occultists. From the micro to the macro. So in terms of the media on the world stage, they want everybody to all focus on one thing at a time. And as soon as one identification goes, guess what? Another one pops up. We don't get a day off.
No.
They're
handing out things to identify with constantly.
Yeah. And mental mental sickness and entity attachment is connected to identification. Through the act of identification, it basically makes you weak. And when you're weak, you can be controlled, you can be manipulated. And this is where things like people talk about entity attachments. This is where this fits in, is because somebody has been reduced to such a degree of weakness through identification. Illusion of balance and senseless actions are key symptoms. What are we seeing populations do? There's a complete loss of balance. There's a complete plethora of senseless actions taking place.
Yeah, sure.
Self-anger and hatred. This is in abundance, especially with the kids. And then it manifests, as they grow into adults. Now, the question is, or should I say, the point is, with identification, is the connection to how we consider. And these are words. These are words in our language that describe phenomena. So you've got identification, you've got considering. So you've got inner considering, you've got external considering. And this brings us right back to what I started with society, and how does a society function when you've got people that either don't inner consider or they don't externally consider. Freedom. You can only really have freedom if there is a management of consideration.
Yeah, it's all relative.
Yeah, so it's all connected. I want to go into some words. So as occultists and people on the esoteric spectrum, they will pay attention to the words they use in their language. So words like ought to, or ought not to, or ought not. These are very important. So think about it, right? When somebody says to themselves, "Oh, I ought not do that," what is driving that belief that you ought not do it?
I'd say it's your conscience, your inner self telling you not to do something, your morality.
And what about when the voice that tells you that you ought to do something? What I'm alluding towards is who controls that, and can it be manipulated? Can it be controlled externally? Can such ought to and ought not to be controlled? So what about these people that change their what do you call it, Facebook profile flag thing? They feel an obligation that they ought to support the latest event.
Well, I would say that they're getting their ought from an egregore.
Yeah.
Or from a divok. A collective, an exterior collective thought form that is puppeteering them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Divok AI.
Yeah, so it's literally an external event, and they're kind of, because they're weak and they don't understand identification, they don't know how to actually inner consider or externally consider, they just kind of go with the majority. And that's majority rule. The majority or the common consensus generally has, it doesn't matter if it's true, it doesn't matter if it's real, it just matters that it's the majority, and that's what the mainstream says, and that's what everybody says.
Just go with the flow, man.
Yeah, you just go with the flow, and that becomes their ought to and ought not to. So as a simple exercise, it's quite useful when you face that situation where you feel you ought to do something or you ought not to do something, is to ask yourself, where does that come from? Does it come from some kind of natural conscience, or was it artificially placed? Now, just to give confirmation of this, you've now got I can't believe it. I mean, this is like the greatest apocalypse ever. It's like such a revelation of the method. Right, you've now got far left liberal libtards now supporting Nazi regimes. Think about that.
Literal, not even really neo-Nazis. They are literally Nazis.
Yeah.
There's, but the thing is, like, I think there was a great Virus Man meme about this. They've been saying that people are literal Nazis for the last 4 or 5 years, talking about people like Donald Trump or some of his cronies or whatever. But no, these people are literal Nazis, and they are the poster boys of the revolution against Russia. It's really weird.
Yeah, weird times, yeah.
Really weird.
But then,
I said the other day, it's like we're about to enter the Cold War 2.0, but this time we're the Soviet Union, and Russia sort of represent
freedom.
Freedom, yeah, freedom, yeah, basically, yeah. It's really, what an inversion, eh?
Yeah. Well, we say in the occult world that everything in the end becomes its own opposite. So that's kind of like a natural law in some way.
It's like the Ouroboros, isn't it? The snake eating its own tail. The arse basically end up becoming the mouth, and vice versa.
Yeah, and with revolutions, inevitably they become worse than the dictators they deposed of. So,
yeah.
All right, okay. So, like I say, I'm conscious of the time, and I'll keep pushing on. So, anyway, how do we? I want to sort of get some positivity going, because I kind of exposed the problem for the most part. What can we actually do about it? And so I finished with the sort of question, ought to, ought not to. So how do we know whether we ought to do something or we ought not do it? Okay, now, this is where the light occultists come in. So when you're a light occultist, the way that you figure out what you ought or ought not to do is to have aim. Right, so the early Gnostics were called those that are aimed. Light occultists are those that are aimed. So what that basically means is that whatever opposes your aim, you ought not do. Whatever supports your aim, you ought to do.
Well, so that makes it really easy.
Yeah, this brings some clarity into the decision making, but you need an aim. Now, whatever your aim is with a capital A, then you ought to do what supports your aim with a capital A. And I say that with a capital A because I'm talking about like a cosmic aim, not a kind of low level aim. And there is a difference. So what is the aim? If the aim is to develop higher being bodies, if the aim is to develop or retain immortality, then that's an aim on a cosmic level as opposed to a kind of mundane aim, maybe in the workplace or in your training or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
So an aim with a capital A could be, doesn't have to be, but it could be the development of higher being bodies or immortality.
Or just the the evolution of your soul, you could say, to the inner work in a more
Yep.
broad term.
Yep. So when you're aimed, things actually become very simple. So as an example, if something is going to go or oppose my aim to develop higher being bodies, then I ought not participate in it or ought not do it. If it supports my ability to develop a soul or higher being bodies or whatever description you want to give to the intangible aspects of humans, if it supports it, then I ought to do it. So life becomes actually very simple,
Yeah.
very, very clear. And this is why you'll hear me say I'm not going to place my attention on something, because if I don't feel it's actually going to support the development of my higher being body, then I don't waste my energy by placing my attention on any given subject. So going back to consideration. So this is what real consideration means: to consider what is useful to the development of higher being bodies or what is not useful. So this would be real consideration. Now, this type of consideration, majority of people don't really have. Their consideration is taken up with identification. So a light occultist will struggle with consideration. Whereas a regular person, they view consideration almost, how do we say? So somebody that's identified, right? They will view consideration as, or non-consideration as, insincerity.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So, for instance, if I'm a light occultist, I might come across that I'm not considerate because I'm not going to identify with this, and I'm not going to put a flag on my profile. I'm not going to. Yeah. So
Yeah.
this is why light occultists are often unseen. You can't identify them.
Sure.
They're esoteric. They're hidden because you don't see them protesting. You don't see them identifying with this, that, and the other. And they don't have a problem with it because they don't view the struggle of consideration with some type of insincerity. Now, somebody may put a flag on their profile because they think if they don't, then they will appear to be insincere. So in esoteric groups, they give you exercises, and quite often the exercises will be the struggle with inner considering. So as an example, you could be asked to drop litter on a train in front of everybody and sit there and not consider the opinions of others. And remember, this is just an exercise, and you will pick up the litter eventually.
Yeah. You talked about this one before.
Yeah, that sensation that you get when you kind of are non-considerate, you're fighting with identification. Most people can't do that. Why? Because they become identified with what other people think of them.
Very interesting.
It's making sense, yeah?
Absolutely.
Now, that sensation you get when, let's say, for instance, you sit on a train or a bus and you just drop litter and everyone's staring at you. And you have to sit there exercising the struggle not to identify with the opinions of others. That's energy. That's friction. That's serious friction. And remember, we spoke about friction and struggling creates the heat for the development of, it's a non-physical substance, but it's the energy that will feed your higher being bodies.
Ancestor dust?
Yeah.
Is that what we're made of?
It could be.
This metaphysical substance. You have sort of alluded to a metaphysical substance that's sort of intangible a couple of times before you've mentioned this, I remember.
Yeah. Well, we have to discuss like non-physical food. and stuff like that, and essence, energy, harvesting. What are they harvesting? They can't grab it. Most people laugh at the concept of energy harvesting. If you say to them that, you do realize that, like, the World Cup is energy harvesting, they probably think you're crazy.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So this type of thing is kind of like an inner and outer struggle. How you relate to self, other, and the reconciling between self and other. And these, like I say, these are just exercises. They're not a way of life. Like lighter cultures don't go around dropping litter. It could just be an exercise. It could be, I could give you 20 different exercises of how to experience the struggle of not identifying with the opinions of other people. And I think I mentioned it about David Icke. Now,
Yes.
These are like initiations. So when a teacher asks you to perform an exercise like this, it's almost like a type of initiation. If you can't get past that point, then it's almost like you're not going to be able to handle. You can't be a vessel for any more knowledge.
Because you've got too much identification.
Yes. Yeah. You have to let identification go. You have to give it up. That is the initiation.
That's what he talks about in all of his books. He says, I'm not David Icke. I'm an experience called David Icke. He says I don't identify with the name. And I know some people don't like the fact that we talk about David Icke, but it is what it is. I happen to think he's a good source of information. I probably wouldn't be sat here today if I hadn't read David Icke books like 20 years ago. Gary Elliott says, clap for NHS. Is that energy harvesting? I'd say that's an excellent example of energy harvesting. An amazing example. Everyone's still on their front doorstep looking at each other, banging their pots and pans.
Yeah, and that's a very good example. But let's face it, right? Most of our existence in this realm is made up of these activities. They're kind of like the highlights.
I often said to someone, if you think that it's crazy about energy harvesting at a football match, I said, imagine if you could look at a football match through infrared goggles that show like heat being given off, or human emotion. You could see that human emotion was red, and imagine if you looked at that stadium from a helicopter compared to the other people sat in their terrace houses around the stadium. It would be a glowing red infernal ball of energy through these goggles that detected human emotion. What, you really think that's going to waste? You think that much energy is going to go to waste in this realm? No way.
Yeah. And this goes back to what I said in the beginning about the cosmi and the cosmos, because they're participating and in the feeding of the cosmos, and this is where the harvesting of energy comes into play.
So that's why the different events would happen on different days of the astrological year or the lunar calendar or whatever it is. It would be to feed different deities,
bodies,
different bodies.
Entities. Yeah, different planets. Like I say, I'm limited for time, but as an example, those that participate in this cosmi, they call themselves cosmists. They believe that they're managing, or they're in a position to manage the cosmos. So therefore, they genuinely believe that it's their right to spread ancestor dust or their own dust onto other bodies, other planets. And this is why there's this obsession with the physical traveling onto different bodies and stuff like that. But
the cosmic shepherd class.
Yeah. Right. Let me push on. So.
Yeah, we've got about 9 minutes. 8 minutes. Well, I think we're gonna have to carry this on next Wednesday, aren't we? Because it's already midnight on a Wednesday. We don't normally go past 2 hours. We're already at 3 hours.
Well, I think I can wrap this up actually.
Okay, go on.
All right.
I don't want you to rush it though.
No. I mean, I've got. Like I say, this is a fraction of the stuff.
We have a lifetime.
Yeah. Right. I've lost where I was at.
So you were talking about spreading cosmic dust onto other planetary bodies. These groups believe they have the right to be this cosmic shepherd class.
All right, yeah. So right. So the struggle, the genuine struggle of the light occultist is the noble action which leads to inner friction. Okay, so a light occultist will actively seek some form of inner friction because it's useful. So they'll put themselves in positions where they can experience inner frictions by not identifying with any given subject. And they will argue that it's lawful and it's part of the cosmos that these events have to be injected into this realm as catalysts. It's material for transformation for higher being food or energy to feed upon. So as an example, if I'm sat on a bus or a train and I drop litter and everyone's staring at me and I don't identify, the mechanisms inside me will generate a certain particular type of energy that will feed my higher being bodies, and I can sit there totally nourished in non-identification, and more importantly, the non-expression of any negativity, which is another whole subject. So the expression of negative emotion is the quickest way to feed the moon, to be harvested. Yeah, any outburst or expression of negative emotion. Now, people often do that believing that they're being sincere, and if you try to tell them that they shouldn't display negative emotion, they actually think that you're very insincere or cold or inconsiderate. When in actual fact, the event was orchestrated anyway so that they would be devoured of their energy.
That was the whole point of the event.
Yeah, yeah, and that can be like locally, it can be non-local, it could be international, it could be cosmic. These events are there for a reason, to test you. If you want to feed any Tom, Dick, or Harry, or any entity or whatever, then yeah, express. I mean, look, it's often seen as a virtue to express your emotions. Think about it.
Spill them all over the place.
Yeah, yeah, and it's encouraged. Now, when people become, when they start working on themselves by using certain techniques, they become very stoic and reasonable, and that is almost like the highest form of intelligence. It's useful because those people are useful. People running around spewing out negative emotion and virtue signaling and stuff like that, nothing gets done.
Yeah, it's just all complaining and all emotions and all virtue signaling. That's all it is. There's never any action. Nothing. No problems have been solved by that, or by those people that do that.
Yeah. So this subject of inner considering what other people think of you and identifying with that, all that does is just create weakness, internal weakness.
Yeah.
And you know, the consequence of that is outbursts of negative emotion. This is why people fight. This is why people want to kill each other. It's because of their hijacking of their identification function. It ends up those that consider themselves virtuous end up becoming violent, or they can do. Things become their own opposite. It's the flipping of and the manipulation of. You can hear my dog yawning.
Yeah.
If anybody's wondering what that noise is, it's not me.
I've got someone tied up there in the background.
Yeah. So anyway, pushing on. Yeah. So once you enter that cycle of weakness, guess what? The wheel keeps spinning.
Now you're looking for the next event, the next grief hole, the next injustice to identify with.
Yeah, because you can be guaranteed as soon as one event ends, the next one will appear. And I'm talking like,
there's always something else on the table.
yeah, and I'm talking like locally. Like even if you just look at how your life is, how your day is, there'll always be somebody that will piss you off or cause you to identify or whatever. There's an abundance of it, and it's by design. This realm is designed that way. The problem is that function's been corrupted and hijacked and used as a mechanism of control. Okay, so I said to you I was going to give you an exercise.
Yeah.
Should we jump into that?
Yeah. Let's sort of finish off with a nice little exercise.
Okay, right. Everybody in the chat or whatever who's watching this at home, you can participate. Feel free.
Okay.
Right. Okay. So we're going to be talking about aim. Okay. Now remember, with these exercises are designed to make you fail. Anybody that finds them too easy or does them right first time, it probably means that you haven't done it correctly in one way or another. So with these exercises, don't feel that you have to get it right. In actual fact, feel blessed if you get it wrong. Because what these exercises do, they actually teach you what you're not. Because unfortunately, we have a lot of beliefs that we're something that we're not, and that we have the correct functioning of something that actually either doesn't exist or has been degraded. So these exercises that we do are designed purely to reveal to ourselves that we don't function exactly how the illusion that we have of ourselves. And that is the beginning. That is literally the beginning of freedom. I spoke of earlier about freedom. What is freedom? Freedom from identification is the ultimate freedom. Okay, so
Yeah.
Right, so the exercise, it can be done standing or sitting down. I'll try my best to communicate it live. Hopefully it will have the desired effect. Right, okay, so it is a little bit physical, but not too much. Right, so this is the aim. The aim is to put your hands above your head, stretch your fingers out, and elongate your arms, shoulders as far to the roof as possible. Okay, so it's a very, very simple aim. So let's go. So you can sit down and do it. So stretch your arms as high as you can.
My earphones get in the way.
Yeah, so stretch them as far as you can, right? So feel that is as far as that you can stretch them. Okay, now stretch them even more. Okay, so your arms have to be stretched as far or as close to the ceiling as possible. Right, okay, so we're going to focus on numbers. So if you can repeat these numbers after me and see if you can figure out the sequence of these numbers. So we've got 1, 2, 3. So say the numbers.
1, 2, 3.
2, 1.
2, 1.
3, 4, 5.
3, 4, 5.
And remember, you've got to try and figure out the sequence of these numbers. 4, 3.
4, 3.
5, 6, 7.
5, 6, 7.
6, 5.
6, 5.
7, 8, 9.
7, 8, 9.
Right, now see if you can stretch your arms up more. Right, okay. You can let them down now. Let them down. Right, so I'll explain what we just did for those who haven't figured it out. So the aim was to stretch the arms up to the ceiling as far as you can. Okay. So then I gave a distraction, an identification with numbers. Almost by default, by definition, the shoulders, arms came down.
Yeah, mine did.
Yeah. So what I'm just demonstrating is how identification can be used to manipulate the actions of the physical realm. So the moment I gave you the numbers and I said, work out the sequence, we kind of went into our logical brain, the mathematical aspects of our thinking.
And you didn't even ever ask me the numbers either. I was waiting to be asked the question of like what would be the next numbers in the sequence, and I was thinking about it as my arms were coming down.
Yeah. So what it demonstrates is it's very hard for us to function on the physical and the mental simultaneously. Now, the reason why I said that question is because I wanted you to identify with getting it right. And the moment you become identified, guess what? You lose your aim. The aim was to keep your, So let's say, for instance, if your aim was to develop an immortal body, higher being bodies, and so on and so forth, as humanity, maybe that's why we're here in the first place. And yet somebody tells you to be identified with the left hand or the right hand, or look over here, look over there. You forget your aim. You don't remember your aim. And the moment that happens, you're controlled. And this is basically the realm that we're living in.
Yep.
So those that are of the light, occult, esoteric spectrum, they have aims. The aim is to develop a soul, and anything that opposes that aim is deemed not useful to them. And that's real strength. That's real development. That's the embodiment. That's the syncretism of mind, emotions, because it was possibly the emotional aspect that you wanted to get it right. So we employed the physical with the arm stretching. Then the numbers were for the brain. And then when I said, I want you to work out the sequence, I would say that's probably the emotional side. So I was able to basically dissect you by giving you an event. And this is what is happening to humanity on a daily basis.
Gosh. You said you were going in tonight, didn't you?
Yeah.
This is so true. Weapons of mass distraction.
Yep. Right, and just to kind of close this off, right? So as an example, I've just given you an initiation of sorts. I've just given you a revelation of a method. You now have something. You now have some function or knowledge of a function, and how it can be easily corrupted. So next time, it won't be your attention, your identification function can't be manipulated as easily. You'll be on guard. You'll be able to see, observe when something is an event designed to get you to identify. The identification will lead to the harvesting of your energy.
Master Lee is dropping bombs right here. Identification leads to the harvesting of your energy.
Yeah. And you remember the fire cycle?
Yes. Focus, intent, remember.
Remember. And this is the remembering bit. You have to remember the knowledge. You have to remember who you are. You have to remember your inner functioning. You have to remember that you're sovereign. You have to remember your aim. Remember your aim.
Yes. And don't get distracted.
Yep, don't get distracted. Now, just to finally finish, you've often heard me talk about how to be invisible.
Yes.
Well, those that develop the higher being bodies and the correct functioning of their non-identification, non-expression of negative emotion, they remember their aim. At that point of development, you can start to become invisible. Now, you won't be invisible physically, but you won't be projecting or identifying, or others can't identify to you. So you can literally walk into a restaurant, walk into a shop, walk into wherever, shopping center, and nobody will see you. Nobody will pick up on you. Nobody will identify with you. This is why there's this mad obsession with who you are, having an ID chip, having a passport, having a driving license, having goes on and on, to stop you from becoming invisible. When you're invisible, guess what? You're free. You're free from identification.
Oh mate, I've got a lyric. I was told to change my ways, but then I learned to embrace, to be an individual. You live criminal or invisible, set pace. I haven't even released this one yet. Mental.
Mental.
Oh, mental.
Yeah. Well, I broke down that saying, mental. Yeah.
Yeah.
Men, mind, or head. In Japanese, men means head. Men tall. So you keep your head tall on the triad. Rise
Always
above.
comes rise above. And there we go. That was one whole rabbit. I do believe that was one fillet of rabbit just there. Oh, okay, look at that. Just as we drop the full rabbit, we get the chat bots back again. Always the same. Wow. So
Yeah.
deep has been completed. Have we completed this section of deep? I think
For
we
now,
have.
yeah.
For now.
I mean, I can go deeper, but I think it needs to be done in a slightly different way, potentially in a small group.
Yeah. Did you want to talk about that quickly before we wrap it up?
Yeah. So if anybody is interested in what I'm talking about, and I take on board, and I won't identify if nobody wants to participate, but I'm actually offering for people to participate in a small group study, work, exercises for the development of higher being bodies. You can contact me. I'll give up my email address.
I'll
I don't
type
know
it
if,
and put it in the chat now if you want.
yeah, so it's innerguardians@gmx.com. Okay, so what I'm asking for is that anybody that does want to connect is that you put your real name for start, and just a basic explanation as to why you would want to be interested in participating in this group work. Now, it may be on a digital platform, it may be physically. So I'm going to be organizing various different meetings or groups around the UK. And like I say, to start off with, it may be digital on some kind of Zoom or one platform or another. So the offer's out there. If anybody's interested in this type of thing.
What an opportunity.
Yep.
Not many. I just have to say, I've just got to give some context here. It's not every day of the week that this kind of knowledge is given out, in without some sort of initiation into a secret society, without years of study, and certainly not just by appointment by email. So I would urge anyone that's with pure intentions that wants to learn more about what Inner Guardians Master Lee has been talking about tonight to email him, because an opportunity like that doesn't come around very often.
Yeah. I just want to thank the platform, Lance, and everybody behind the team at Rise Above for enabling me to be able to communicate this type of information. I think it was preordained. I think it was very synchronistic, the way it naturally and organically evolved.
Absolutely.
And a big thank you for everybody that's been patient and taken the time to listen, to participate, to feed upon anything that I've got to say. If it and I, like I say, I'm not going to consider. I'm not going to identify with anybody that rejects what I'm saying. Potentially, it is not useful for certain people, and that's fine. It's lawful. If you want to be food for the moon, that is also lawful. It's also needed. But also,
we respect people's choice to be food for the moon.
Yeah. But it's also lawful, and for the cosmos, for reality, for the realm, that people do develop non-physical bodies, higher being bodies, the soul, in its truest sense.
Yeah, it's important. The time is now. Inner Guardians, thank you very much. Are we gonna have a midweek next week? Maybe we should leave that ambiguous. So we'll see. We'll see what the realm presents. If the ICC gives us any time off. Next Friday, this is Friday, March the 11th, not this Friday, next Friday, we return with Friday Night Live, Rise Above, episode 58, Terror Slim versus the Dark Occult hip-hop artists industry. Andy PG, Oma Beats will be back, Inner Guardians will be back. We might see you on Wednesday, sorry. But yeah, everyone behave yourselves. And don't forget about the Telegram. All the links have been on the screen throughout the night. Sam Carno, throw the Telegram up in the chat again. Get rid of these bots as well, please. And don't forget, T-shirts are available. Where are the T-shirts gone? Here we go. Yeah, the lady T-shirts are available, £25 each. riseabove.news/shop. Inner Guardians, thank you very much, and I'll speak to you soon. Master Lee, Rise Above.
Yep, Rise Above.
Excellent.
Okay, see everybody next week.